Hello, folks. How we all doing? It's Thursday. It's a Thursday night. We all know what that means. It means I need to get my other iPad feed set up so I can see what's actually going on here. Whoa. Welcome to another Gab and Doodle. Tonight we are excited to have on a lovely guest. I guess we always have on lovely guests, so it's not like I'm gonna say like tonight we're gonna have on a real dud. That's never part of this. But I see, Tamisha Anthony, I see, let's do a little wave there because they're gonna be joining us at a later date. And I see our guest has joined. But let me put in my standard stuff and then I'll give you my little spiel at the beginning. So ask us anything, and I'm going to try to keep track. I always say that, and then I always forget. But I'm going to try to say, ask us anything. I'm going to put that in the comments. And if you have questions, if you have anything that you want to sort of get the inside deets on, we can try to answer those as we go along. Hello, Tamisha. But tonight, we have on a amazing author, illustrator, someone that we've, in this household, just for anybody that's never tuned into this before, I say we because basically this is me on camera, but the CEO, the director of sorts, the person who does all the hard work is actually upstairs watching from a feed that we have in a different part of the house. My wife, Lauren. I should add in my lovely wife, Lauren. So anyways, we've been huge fans of our guest tonight, who is, it's backwards, I'm sorry, but you can get the idea. Stephanie Graegin, who did Little Fox in the Forest, most recently some of the books that came out, The Long Ride Home here, all these amazing, of course I pick one that's very dark that's not going to show up on screen right away. All these amazing, super cute illustrations, real sort of mixture of graphite, although some of it's digital, and tones and colors and things of the sort, stuff like Today. The one that people might know probably a lot too that sort of got us involved is the Superman Stands Up, and is great at drawing all these lovely little, like, specifically little foresty creatures in different settings, of course, but like little people and little animals. Those are a superstar that shows up in all of these. And so we're going to be talking with Stephanie here in just a second. But I want to give a heads up. Next week we're going to actually be meeting a meeting. This isn't a meeting. Next week we have the reports due. No, next week we're going to have a guest on at a little bit of a different time because I will be on spring break. And so instead of the normal 8 o'clock time, we're switching to, originally it says 2 o'clock, but we're going to actually update that, and it's going to be at noon that we're meeting, or that we're having another Gab and Doodle next week. So just bear that in mind. Okay, let me let in our special guest. We'll have a conversation, we'll make art, and it'll be all fun and games. So let me go, and sometimes it's right here and sometimes it's not. Let's see. Let me get Stephanie all set up. Invite is being sent. So now we wait. And we wait. And we are joined. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. Your audio is really... Can you say something again real quick for me? Yeah, it's muted. Is the mic covered? It's barely. I can hear myself talking to you. There's
Any
technical problem. Wait, say something again?
Yeah. Hello?
There we go. We got it. Was there something in front of the mic?
I think it's just the phone stand. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I heard the conversation from the phone stand. It was lovely. We had a long chat. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. We are very appreciative that you're here. Before I forget, will you say your last name for me to make sure I'm saying it properly?
Graegin.
Graegin. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I say it with a Midwest accent. So bear with me.
Well, I'm from the Midwest anyway. So.
Okay. Yeah, I just Graegin. I don't pronounce it proper, but I'll try. I just want to make sure there was
Graegin. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. That I still can't say that one properly. It doesn't matter. So thank you for joining us tonight. We're very excited to have you on and to have a conversation that potentially goes everywhere in a matter of it could be minutes, could be hours, who knows. But why don't you real quick give those that are watching a little hint of who you are? I showed some of your books, as you probably saw, but who are you? What do you do? Why are you here?
I'm here because you invited me, Mark. But,
Oh yeah.
I'm Stephanie Graegin. I am an illustrator and a writer of picture books. I've been illustrating for over 10 years. My first book came out in 2013.
Okay.
Yeah, I mostly illustrate, but I do write too. I've written 3 and just am working on the final artwork for my 4th. Yeah, I love drawing animals, things like that.
Okay.
I'm in Brooklyn, New York.
Where's the Brooklyn accent?
Well, I came here in my 20s, so
Yeah.
the accent never came.
Yeah. I want a real thick Brooklyn accent for the rest of this. Can you do a fake Brooklyn accent for us?
I don't think I can even do one without it being like offensive.
Yeah, there you go. We talk about pizza pies all the time. Yeah. So it sounds, just knowing sort of the history of what I've been able to find online and things as well, that we're sort of in the same ballpark. We started around the same time roughly. But you're beating me on those numbers of written books, and that's a challenge. That's I don't know about you. It said that you went to MICA, is that right?
I went to MICA for undergrad and in Pratt for graduate school.
Those little tiny schools that don't mean anything. Most of them are huge names. And so did you study writing beforehand, or was that something that?
No, I didn't though. I've always been writing stories since I was a kid. Like. Okay. When I was like 8, I won a Young Authors Award for writing a book about beavers that were playing baseball with magic baseball bats. So like my work really hasn't changed all that much.
Is that the 4th book as you're rewriting that?
Not that one, but I really should write again.
I bet you if like pretty much everybody that's in Kidlit probably had some stories they wrote when they were little. Yeah. That if they went back to it could probably find some little grain of story that would be worth sort of rehashing in some way.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
That artwork I feel like isn't really that different, surprisingly. Yeah.
It still has little critters that are doing something in it. So a couple of things to get us sort of going for the night. One, you can step off whenever you need. Don't worry about my feelings. I'm a slab of stone that it has no tears ever. That just, if you get tired or whatever, I know you're on the East Coast here too, and so depending on if you go the whole length, you're going late with me. If not,
I probably can't do the whole, but I'm at least here for 2 hours.
Okay. Yeah. I'll hold you to that.
Yeah.
It gets excruciatingly painful. I'm going to say 2 hours. You have to say. The other questions are the standard fare. My wife keeps track of what people use for the night, what materials, and I know that I was looking through all the colophon on all the books, and it says, pencil and sometimes digital color and things of the sort. But then all of a sudden there's a shift that jumps to Adobe Fresco.
Yeah.
Some of the books. Is that what we're using primarily?
That's not what I'm drawing with tonight.
Okay.
But I'm just going to draw with pencils and colored pencils and some markers. But I started using an iPad just for, it was, once the technology got better, it just seemed silly to not, because I was already coloring in Photoshop. So once I found a pencil that I really liked on the iPad that mimicked a pencil enough, I switched over to using Adobe Fresco for the drawing part that would have been graphite scanned in years before and then colored in Photoshop. But so it's kind of just
it's the same method. It's a matter of a digital pencil versus. Now, out of curiosity, why Adobe Fresco versus Procreate? Because some people, so many people are on Procreate, and there's people I know that love Fresco, and they love Fresco for a reason. And I'm wondering, is there something that comes from that?
I think it was really just like I couldn't get the pencil to work like I wanted it to in Procreate, but in Fresco I got it to feel like in the look that I wanted.
Yeah.
So it was all that, simply that, because I really just used the pencil. I'm not using any of the other tools. Because I'm doing like the coloring in Photoshop still. So it's really just so I can sit with an iPad somewhere and draw and immediately bring it into Photoshop without scanning everything in. And just the pencil on Fresco worked better for me. That was really it.
It's funny.
Nothing else.
That it's such a simple tool. Like even I use Procreate, but my favorite brush in the whole thing is a pencil brush, the standard 6B pencil that like comes with it. And like so many people love that sort of simplistic element. I tried Fresco, but I got too caught up in all the like the fluid brushes and all the like
some of
the bells and whistles.
It's almost too much at times. Yeah, I should try Procreate again though, because it's been a few years since I've tried it. So maybe I'll like their better now.
If you like Fresco, stay with Fresco. It works. You don't need to change it up for the sake of argument. So tonight, are there certain brands of pencils and certain brands of colored pencils? And you said markers. Are there brands of those that you sort of rely on?
I'm not too picky. I do like Blackwing pencils, but I'll also just draw with any pencil that's around. It doesn't have to be something fancy. My colored pencils are a mix of a lot of things. Some of them are so short, I can't even see what they are.
Are they?
Yeah.
Prismacolors, I assume, in there.
Yeah, and I have these markers, these Copic markers.
Okay.
Copic. I don't know how you say it even.
I don't either. I think it's Copic.
Recent purchases that I just play around with. I don't.
Gotcha.
Really, I make people birthday cards and stuff with them.
What do you use for a surface when you're drawing? Because I noticed at some point it said something about like I forget what weight paper, or was a specific type of paper that you were using in one of the books it mentioned.
Oh really? I didn't know it said that.
I don't remember which one it was.
Go back and look. I'm not even sure. I'm just using some really cheap.
Uh-oh. Let me invite again. It says left. I don't know if that means that there was an accidental button I was pushed, but let me see if I can get Sarah back in here. We don't like to talk about cheap stuff in here, and so I kicked her out. There we go. Let me see. I'm sending the invite now. Hopefully everything's okay there. That's a dark statement. I don't mean to throw it out there, but give me a second. We'll give it a minute. And my guess is there is some, potentially some internet issues, maybe. We'll see. We didn't get the classic stall. While we're waiting, what I'm going to ask for people, oh, there we go, view request. Let's see, can we get it? Hello.
Hi. So I don't have any idea what happened. It all of a sudden just frozen and I was no longer there.
You said 2 hours. You were such a liar.
It's like 2 minutes.
Yeah. You have no concept of time. Yeah. Sorry, you were, what were you saying then? I just lost that.
Paper, I think. I'm just using crappy cardstock right now.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. If I was doing a really nice drawing, now actually I usually use like copy paper. I don't use anything fancy. Unless I was giving it to someone, I might.
Yeah.
Stick paper, but
So
for sketches and stuff, I just use like buy like a big pack of like printer paper and just use that. I mean, the nicer printer paper, but not.
you justify it at the end, right?
Yeah.
Not the super thin stuff, okay, everybody?
Stuff, but you know, they're cheap materials. I don't think you need really, really nice paper to draw on, unless you're using a lot of heavy materials or water-based. But when you're just drawing in pencil, it doesn't.
Yeah, there's not the wear and tear like you would get with something else. So my wife missed it, so I'm gonna reiterate stuff like colored pencils or stuff like Prismacolors and standard sort of fare there, Copic markers, Blackwing pencils, and then the cheapest paper ever, the thinnest, cheapest paper you can find.
Really cheap paper. I think it's from like a stationery or like a copy supply store, so it's like nothing.
The amount of sketching I do on just plain like laser printer paper when I'm out like and about, and I don't bring a sketchbook with me, so I'm always like, okay, what scraps are around? I just draw on the scraps. Even here I have like a sketchbook, but it's just like I don't even care about the quality. It has to be thick enough that I can't see the sketch on the other side.
Yeah,
that's the only caveat. And then, so the other question is, what are we actually working on tonight?
I'm just gonna draw whatever, because I feel like when I work on an actual project, I can't have people look at me when I draw.
Okay, fair game, fair game. So it's going to go whatever direction it goes.
Yeah. Anyone has suggestions of anything they want me to draw?
That's what I was going to ask you. Is I don't know where I'm going either.
Oh, good. Okay.
And so you can throw something at me as an idea, or people can throw something in the comments as we start, and maybe something strikes our fancy.
Yeah.
So if people want to do that, they want to throw out subject matter that would be fun to doodle with. I'm fair game for the night. And we can just sort of start working and have the conversation and sketch, and eventually they turn into something. So my wife's already saying St. Patty's Day. She said that before, and I don't know exactly what I want to do for that. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be anything. That's one suggestion. But she was saying that, and Pi Day is coming up soon.
Pie. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with a pie either. I haven't really started sketching. So why don't we do this? Why don't we switch our cameras to our downshoots or to whatever, however you're setting it up there. So I have a feed here that's got about a 10-second delay on it. So if you try to show me something, you're like, hey, look at this. You might have to wait for me to go, hold on. And then eventually I'll be able to see it. But I can watch the comments that people put up, so I can sort of relay if you don't have access to it.
Okay. I might not be able to see them once I set up my
camera. Yeah, that generally happens. So why don't we set up our cameras and get everything ready to roll. Great. And then we'll just start chatting. So let me get this guy set up. And I'll keep an eye on the feed to make sure that sets up in a way for you that if there's any questions about what's on screen, etc. So as we're setting up here, tell me a little bit. So you went to school at Micah. Was that for illustration?
No, it wasn't. It was for general fine arts. Well, actually, I started out doing illustration.
Okay.
But I really didn't want to like limit myself to just illustration classes, because I felt like there was a lot I wanted to learn with, try all different kinds of art, like, learn how to oil paint, learn how to do sculptures, photography, printmaking, where the illustration classes felt like really, you make sketches and do these certain projects. And a lot of it was materials I'd already been using that, because you have to be able to work quickly, of course.
Gotcha.
So I switched to general fine arts so that I could study whatever I wanted. And so I did a lot of printmaking. I did oil paintings. I did take one children's book illustration class my last year there, which I really liked.
But at the time, you really didn't know that you were going to end up in this career of sort of kidlit of sorts?
No, not at all. I mean, it's something I always wanted to do, but I didn't know if it would actually happen.
Okay.
So one of those things.
And then you went back to school for, was it graphic design?
No, I did printmaking. So I really got into printmaking my last couple years at undergrad, where I was really just taking just printmaking classes.
Okay.
And so wanted to do that for grad school too. And so, yeah, I did mostly etchings. I did a lot of like giant woodcuts. The theme of there was still kind of like a kids book type theme, like childhood things were the theme, but they were the work was like a lot darker. Was wouldn't have worked for kids books.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by
like it's more just like darker in color, darker themed, but still like kid related, related to like childhood type things. Okay. But I was kept being told, oh, you should do kids books, and when I graduated, I was like, oh, maybe I will try that.
Gotcha.
But it took a while to actually get into it.
Was there I'm trying to think, like, obviously doing something that's like sort of fine art and painting, you do lots of things. There's obviously skills you're going to pick up as far as drawing and painting and all the like compositional and things, that kind of stuff that goes with it. But printmaking also is very process oriented and very much about sort of like there are rules and regulations. You don't, if you're going to put something in an acid bath for a certain amount of time, you got to be careful of how long you put it in because it will affect the print eventually. Was there a lot of process that you see that translated to your illustration world?
I feel like there still is a lot of process because especially just using Photoshop or laying out a demo book, and the process of putting a book together has a lot of steps that are helpful to follow. But to be honest, what I didn't like about printmaking was the actual like printing things well. I really just like drawing on the plates.
So you were like a monoprint person. You loved.
I wasn't a monoprint person, but okay. If you're really into printmaking, you make like beautiful prints and you print like a bunch of them. But I didn't really like that part of it. I preferred just the drawing part of it, but I liked the way the prints looked. Okay. So printmaking probably wasn't necessarily the best thing for me.
But the idea of doing multiples was not like, or the process of like, you got to run a print and then you got to do another one and you got to do another one and you got to do another one. That was not exciting.
It was nice at the end when you had a big pile of them, but like,
yeah. Okay.
I wasn't someone, there were some people that just really loved to like sit there and print out people's plates, but that wasn't me. I'd rather be drawing on them.
Is there, are there other skills that like, I mean, obviously like book work, it has time management, there is a process there that is a little bit more laborious than some other types of illustration just because of it's a larger project. Is there things that carried over that are like even non-art related that you see, like sort of professional practice or soft skills that you've carried over in the sense of like, like I mentioned, like time management or I'm trying to think of like, I don't know what skills, because I'm not a printmaker, so I can't really go like, oh, you know what, when you're grinding down your stones and things, it's sort of like, oh, that makes total sense on how that carries over. But are there things that you see that relate?
I think it's more just like putting in really like hard work more than anything, because you can't like skip steps. You have to really pay attention to what you're doing, and it takes a lot of dedication to learn the craft of it. So I think it's more just more of working hard and not giving up sort of thing.
Yeah.
And, being organized too. Like you really have to be organized for book projects to get things done on time. So that's definitely part of it too.
So here's what I'm gonna do. This is something that has irked me for a while. This has nothing to do with you. It has to do with me. I oftentimes start these nights by asking questions that are big, bold, like, tell me about your career. how this all works. And then all of a sudden it gets in this track where we're like talking about really depressing stuff. Like, man, life is the worst.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is I'm going to start throwing out some weirder questions to get us going.
Okay.
Tell me if these get too weird, if it's too strange for you. But let's talk a little bit more about sort of life and then how that relates to art versus the other way around. So you're down in Brooklyn and you came from the Midwest. Where in the Midwest were you?
Well, I was born in Chicago and lived in Fort Wayne, Indiana from ages 7 to 13. And then we moved to Houston, Texas. So I've been all over the country, really.
Okay.
And then I went to Baltimore and went back to Texas for about 2 years, and then went up to Pratt in Brooklyn.
Okay. So you've been up in this this big city, this nasty big city. I don't know why I'm saying that. Well, okay, I know why I'm saying that. It's because it's New York and we're near Boston and go Red Sox and whatever. But there's this like attitude that's always been sort of present from New York of like New York toughness and whatnot that shows up. Has that rubbed off on you? Like, are you a tough go-getter in this world of cute little kidlet stuff? Or
somewhat, yeah. I think you become a little bit meaner, like, and you can't let people take advantage of you. Just the way you have to move around the city and deal with different people, or get past people on the subway. You have to like stand up for yourself and like move quickly. And I think, that definitely has made me a faster moving person who, people need to get out of my way if they're in the way, sort of. But
when's the last time you yelled at someone, out of my way?
Oh, no, I don't actually yell at people. But you do have to learn to just like push your way through the crowd and take control of the situation and not just wait patiently.
So you're telling me you don't flip off cabbies when they cut in front of you, and you don't? I'm trying to think of all those like.
Well, I don't drive, so I won't. I don't have that situation.
Oh, you become a real Brooklynite there. You don't even
have
a car. You have to rely on public transport. Do you think that being in the big city in any way sort of like changes your perspective on art, especially from where you came from? Like, I don't know about Fort Wayne, Indiana, but it doesn't sound like it's the hub of art like New York is.
No, I mean, did live in Houston for a while, which is a very large city, but Houston's actually much harder to get around than New York. I think it was more eye-opening of what the art world really is, which you don't know as a student. You're a little bit naive about what really goes on there.
What does that mean? Dive deeper in that one for me.
Well, you don't know that like artists and galleries are hiring students to help paint their work and things like that.
Oh, okay.
That like just in general how difficult it is to like be a gallery artist, that it's all about knowing the right people, and very few people actually succeed in that. You don't really know how difficult that world is. And it's almost impossible to get into until you witness it and witness people trying to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was eye-opening. But the children's book world is much kinder, I think, and actually an easier route to get into.
Is it?
I mean, even though it's still difficult, there's, I think the pathway is more clear.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things I would say, and this is maybe coming from my experience, which is obviously different, but the kidlit side is maybe a little bit more accommodating of people who are trying to figure it out.
Yes.
You don't have to be somehow know a secret password or somehow know the exact right person in order to start to learn knowledge of what you got to do. Sorry, my dog's barking upstairs. Um, was there a time in which, like, you're whether it be in Texas or it be in New York or what have you, that was a clear, like, I have found my art people, like the people that made sense to you to work with or to rely on for critique or things of that sort?
Yeah. I met friends at Pratt, and I met my now husband there. So definitely rely on him for critiques every day. So definitely.
What program was he in?
He was in printmaking too. Yeah. But he likes
Oh.
to actually print things. So he was, sometimes I had him print my plates for me.
Yeah, you do the fun part then.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of, like, I'm gonna go bake cookies and you make someone else do the work, but you get to eat them.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
exactly.
gotcha. Smart. You're just being efficient. That's all that is. You just know how to get the job done in a way that is helpful to you.
Exactly. Yeah, and I started trying to get into kids' books. Not until after graduate school. And it took a while because my style at the time just wasn't right for it. Like, they're not going to hire you to do etchings or giant woodcuts because that takes forever.
Yeah.
And they weren't in color either. So I had to completely, start from scratch and make a portfolio. But it even took a while there because I was drawing more, because I was used to doing printmaking. The pen was actually felt more like what I was doing with etchings. So I was doing a lot of work that looked more like Edward Gorey-ish or like Maurice Sendak with a pen line.
Yep.
But that wasn't really working that well for me. So it took a while before I really found my style and what was working best for me until I switched to, like, using pencils. That's when things started working out better. And then it really clicked when I tried pencil with just, like, some Photoshop color layers. And I started making a new portfolio with that work. And that was the work that actually got me somewhere.
Yeah.
But first I did, like, kids books, kids magazines, like
highlights,
Baby Bug and highlights and that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
And
with that shift to a new material, building a portfolio, sort of with trying to sort of stretch into that new realm, however you want to state that, was there active decisions on sort of, like, what is kidlit, or was it more of just a natural transition that happened in your world of, like, oh, this just makes more sense, versus, like, you sitting down going, okay, here are the rules I must follow?
It came really natural because even in undergrad, I was making artist books that were essentially like kids' books, but maybe were just more, I would say, like, the storyline would be more like Edward Gorey-ish would be the closest thing I can think of, where you wouldn't necessarily, publish that today as a kid's book. But trying to, oh, my drawing is too low, isn't it?
It's okay. There you go. You're on screen now. You're good. You already have, like, a drawing, and I'm just painting swatches. I have no idea yet what I'm doing. I'll figure it out as I get there.
Yeah. So what was I saying? Oh, so yeah, it came really natural because I'd always been making little book type things, and also was always really into buying picture books and reading picture books. And so it wasn't like it was a new interest. It was an interest that I've had my entire life.
Yeah. So it wasn't a steep learning curve of any sort.
No, not like the theme or anything. And it was everything I would draw if I was just wanting to, like, doodle or something anyway. So it wasn't a big switch.
Okay. So, okay. I said I was going to ask you weird questions. I asked you the most like blah Wonder Bread question that are imaginable. Okay, so we're going to get weird. I'm gonna ask you a weird question right now. I'm gonna find a way. Okay, here's a good question for you. How much do you want to eat your drawings?
Eat my drawings.
And the why I ask that is oftentimes people look at like artwork and they go like, oh, that just kind of looks like I want to eat it. Like the color, or, you know, if you see something that's bubblegum pink, you're like, oh, that probably tastes like bubblegum. And you get excited. I'm wondering, like, do you have the sense looking at your work, like there's a flavor to your work?
That's a really interesting question. I don't think I've ever thought I want to eat my drawing.
You never looked at like a page and just go like, oh, that looks scrumptious?
Well, it looks good. Like I want to go inside that drawing and live in that world, but I don't necessarily want to like consume the drawing.
I'm gonna pull up.
But
Let's see Little Fox in the Forest here. Let's knock something over. And we're gonna find a page in here that looks more tasty than the others. I mean, the beginning of this is all like blue, so it's not like oh, this is this. But do we get to the point where we start to see the color, and all of a sudden it gets like tasty? Like, okay, see, like this page is more palatable. I don't know if you can see this. The one where it opens up to the like the animal world with all the buildings. Like that starts to get a little bit more tasty. Or like the oranges that you use on the panda bear, like have a nice like I want to say like clementine or tangerine vibe to them. So like I look at this and I start like I'm not saying that some people have that like bubblegum look to their work, and some people have like, oh, this looks like homemade meals or like a Thanksgiving meal based on the palette. But I'm telling you, you got to think, you got to go look at your paints. You got to say, don't eat them. Don't eat
maybe candy or like sherbet or ice cream.
Yeah, like there's
some of that might be that, but yeah, I actually have not thought of that before, so I'll have to think on that more.
This is where I find out that like you've gone through like tubes of paint, you're just squirting them in your mouth. Right?
Yeah, I haven't eaten my art supplies yet, so.
I'm trying to think of this like specific colors that I'm like, oh, that's the color that I want to eat. I'm looking at all my colors inside of me, and I'm like, there are ones that like oftentimes like reds, but you know what, like a good, here we go, a good yellow ochre, like, yeah, that's a nice, like that's a savory flavor. Sorry. Okay, I'm getting into some like weird psychosis issues with myself on here. Is when you look at your work, just looking at it in general, are there certain things that you sort of gravitate towards as far as like the things that are quintessentially you, or things that, you know, not necessarily thinking about the flavor of the work, but some people might say like, oh, the color is your thing, or like in yours, I look at your work and I know that the graphite sort of texture that's embedded in all the images is very distinctly you. But are there other things that you look at and you're like, that's me, that's the flavor of my work?
But definitely the pencil. I always have pencil somewhere, and maybe the characters, a certain type of character, a certain sort of like coziness, and I like to make environments that you'd want to just go like spend the day in, like a cozy little cottage in the forest, yeah, or, you know, places where you'd want to be, where you'd have a cup of coffee and a stack of books, and, you know, you talk to a bear for a half hour, but he's a nice bear, and, you know,
he doesn't try to
maybe yeah, he shares a pie, gives you a pie. Doesn't try to kill you.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay, so how much does your brain go? That I'm getting like, I'm turning into therapist here. How much does your brain go into that world when you're actually making the work? Like, do you actually like have conversations in your head of like, oh, this character would be doing this, or?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
It depends on what, if you're writing a book or just like illustrating, or what point you are at working on it. If it's something where I've created the entire world, then definitely I know, like this character right here, this bear looks like Fern from Fern and Otto.
Yep.
I would know her likes and dislikes, and what she had for breakfast and things like that. It's yeah, you definitely have to build up this world in your head, and it keeps growing as you keep working on the projects. For sure.
Is there do you ever I feel like I'm like hitting things as I say these questions. Do you ever sit there and have, not just think like, oh, this is what they would think, but actually have conversations from them of like sometimes I will talk to my work as I'm working, like, oh, this guy, he's sitting here and he's saying this, or actually like vocalize what's in my head to the painting. Like, I'm gonna move this little guy over here, and I'm gonna, like, it becomes sort of cutesy talk, like baby talk.
That I don't do.
Okay.
I think it's more in my head.
So, one, you don't eat your artwork.
I don't eat
Two, you don't...
my artwork.
What's going on here? You got.
I'm not crazy, Mark.
Do you ever just like look at your artwork and then want to go burn houses down? It's really fun. Just get really dark all of a sudden. How wild, like, I'm going into like, how do you envision your work through this? And so with all these questions, when you look at your work, is there a soundtrack?
No, not necessarily. I think for Little Fox in the Forest, there was sometimes for certain parts of it, I would visualize. I can't, not anything in particular, but there might have been, because it's wordless and it is moving through like a journey.
Yeah.
But usually, no, I'm very boring in that way. Just thinking, like, should my drawings be giving me like musical advice? I don't know.
No, just like I look at your work and similar to, like you mentioned, like you could sit down in a lovely little cafe and have a conversation with the bear, and those kind of like moments, and then I look at those and I start to say, like, okay, I could hear just some light little like guitar or some a little violin playing. But then you look at someone else's work, like if you go look at, I'm trying to think of who's a person, like Mike Lowry. Do you know Mike Lowry's work?
Yeah.
If you go look at his is not going to be a cute little guitar. It's going to be like a little old Casio keyboard that's playing in the background. And like, I feel like there's just the vibe hits in different ways depending on the person. I feel like mine's like just like I would envision with my work oftentimes that there's like a polka band or like something.
Yeah, I can see that.
Not that it has to be polka, but like there needs to be something that's a little like an instrument that's not the most like graceful instrument.
Something quirky. Yeah. That makes sense.
And so that sort of like makes sense to me. I don't know. I'm going weird already. Okay, so let's jump to a semi-normal question. Okay, so you're jumping into this kidlit world, and you get your first contract. Which book was the first one again? Is that?
Let's see how it started. I'm trying to think. I did a few like really little books for Sterling, which I don't think they exist anymore. That were just like remakes of like Three Little Bears and that sort of thing. My first like real picture book contract was for Beach Lane Books, Happy Birthday Bunny.
Okay. Yeah. And so you get those books, like whether it be the ones that were with Sterling or not, you get those in the mail. What was the initial reaction? Were you in love immediately with the book? Did you have what were there questions about, like, oh, this is like you didn't know what it was going to look like, and then all of a sudden it came and you had to like sort of process? What was that initial reaction?
Oh, you mean when you get like your first copy of it?
Physical, yeah, your author copy or what have you.
Oh, for Happy Birthday Bunny, yeah, it was really exciting, but you know, you always see everything you did wrong. So at the same time, there's always like things that you cringe at, and you're just like, oh, I should have done that page better.
Yeah.
So it's a little mix of both excitement and horror, you know, at the same time.
Are you someone too, like in my case, because I'm going from analog work to digital to print, essentially, like I send the digital files, stuff always comes out darker or the colors are always different.
Oh yeah.
How do you process that? Like, is the work dramatically different when you get it? Or is it
well, I always make sure I get a lot of prints and we go through a lot of rounds of proofing so that it is close to what I want, because usually I want to cry when I see the first round of prints, because a lot of times they will print, they're so much darker than you're expecting. Even if you knew that and go and make your files lighter, it's shocking how different they can look. So I always, you know, make sure we have, which I didn't know when I first started, because the Sterling books, actually, I didn't see any proofs, but, you know, that was my first thing. So I didn't know at the time, but yeah, now I would, you know, I at least see at least 2 rounds of color proofs so that I'm happy with that. And when the real book comes, it's not a surprise at all.
Yeah, you're not in horror and crying in the corner, but
because you just never know if it's not the right paper. You might need to print something, you know, not as matte or something, to get the colors to work right, or it's just, there's a lot of factors where every book prints differently. So proofing is essential.
What's the worst that you saw? Don't name the company, don't name the book, but what's the worst instance that you saw when you got proofs back?
Oh, just, you know, things would be like so dark you can barely tell what's going on in the picture. Like if it's a night scene, those would be the worst, for sure. But you kind of expect that. I mean, it's a learning curve where it doesn't happen as much anymore, just because I know to make the files lighter. But,
you know what you can get away with.
Yeah. It takes a lot of trial and error to figure all that stuff out. But it also changed from printer to printer, so you don't even necessarily know, even if you did it very similar to another book, it could still not necessarily print well. So proofs are important. Always have proofs.
Have you worked on any books where you don't get physical proofs?
The only one was the Sterling project that I did ages ago. That one of my first projects, but everything else gets physical proofs. Like always, you should get proofs for everything.
No, there's understandable. I've had some companies I've worked with that don't send proofs anymore. Just that's their policy.
They don't.
It's not, and I, you know, I would love them, and their stuff comes out okay. It's not. They may have like color correction things on their end that they you know, make sure that it's up to par, knowing the files that I sent in, because I try to get it as accurate on my side as well. But it's I always love getting proofs, but I've heard of quite a few companies that have shifted away from doing physical proofs. And it always shocks me, because it is something where, like, as an artist, I want the best representation of what I had in my original, and sometimes that takes some effort.
Wow.
Or most of the time it's just like, hey, you got to lighten this, and it's not, the colors aren't off, it's the value or the contrast that's the issue. But
I can't imagine that. You know, I guess I haven't gotten some proofs for some chapter books I've done, but that didn't seem as big of a deal, because it's like black and white artwork. But for a full color picture book, I don't think I could. I don't think I could work with people that didn't give me proofs, to be honest.
It's a
requirement for me, I guess.
Now I get them, and now we go through this stuff. And the other thing that I've had is like working with the same publisher over and over on some projects. You know what they're capable of, and you know how the files turn out, and then it's a matter of like, you just set your files the right way, you don't have to worry as much. But definitely with a new publisher, like, yeah, ask for those proofs.
Yeah.
Don't let them make your work a totally different color in the process.
Yeah, that is so important.
Okay, so let's.
Wow, that's eye-opening to me. I didn't know that people weren't sending proofs.
It also depends on the publisher. Like if you're working with a big name publisher, probably more likely they're going to do it. But if you're working with a small publisher, they may be a little bit more hesitant just based on budget, because it does cost to go send stuff out and have it printed overseas and get it back and whatnot. But so let's go the other direction. What's the most? Because I said like, what's the craziest thing you got when you got a proof back? What's the best happy accident you've had while making artwork?
Best happy accident. Oh, these are really hard questions.
Okay, what art director do you want to eat? I'll make it. If these are hard, I'll go even harder.
Oh my God.
You have to pick an art director. You have to pick a flavor for your art director. What's that flavor going to be?
I don't know if I can answer that.
Yeah. It's a weird question.
I mean, it's always fun when you're playing around in Photoshop and you just hit some weird filter and it completely changes a color scheme. That can be interesting and fun, and sometimes you can get something you weren't expecting out of that.
That's like going through the layer options where like it's the heavy light, all those different layer styles.
Yeah.
I do not know what any of those do. It's all just literally sort of, I just scroll down and say, oh, that looks cool, or that doesn't.
They can change your whole palette like instantly.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can get good ideas from that. I mean, usually it looks weird, but sometimes.
I mean, are you a Photoshop expert?
I wouldn't say an expert, but I wouldn't want to like teach a class on it or anything. But I can use it just fine.
I had a problem the other day, and I don't know what I did. I was talking to my wife, and I was looking at my, I was working on a file and doing some color correction and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, I turn around to talk to my wife, and I turn back, and my file is black and white, or grayscale. And I don't know what I clicked. I don't know, like, I tried the undo button, nothing. I must have hit some, like, key command.
There is a grayscale option. Maybe you went to that.
Well, there's a way to make it grayscale, but is there a grayscale key command? Because it wasn't like I did a scroll down menu to get to it or anything.
Yeah, that's really bizarre. I don't know. I don't think there should be a key command for that.
And luckily, I had already like finished it and saved it, so I could just shut down the file. But like, I don't know. No, I didn't. I saved it before it turned to black and white. Let's put it that way. But I don't know what I did. And I've done that a few times in Photoshop where I just like, I don't know what button I clicked and I don't know how to back out of it. So using the history sometimes helps, but sometimes it doesn't. And so it's like, it's sort of like the hide, like Command H, where you can hide your, your selection or some of the extras. But for some reason I did a number on it the other day. Okay, so weird topic. We're not going to talk food this time. We're going to talk extracurriculars. You're applying for college, and you have to write a little paper to get in that says, I want to go to art school because this, but here's all the other things that I do. What are those other things?
Oh, in high school?
I'm saying now. Like if you had to write this paper
oh
now.
My God. Embarrassingly, I feel like I'm so busy that art is like the main thing. I mean, I do try to read a lot. I really like going on really long walks that are very random, where if, we just follow the green lights and walk like 10 miles and see where we end up. That is something I really like to do. But let's see, what else? Yeah, I mean, I feel like my picture books take up 90% of my time.
You are not getting into college with these
I
answers.
know. I would totally not get in. They'd be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you're two the same one thing. You're not diverse in your
Where's your
activities."
team? Where's your the after school math club?
Yeah, I do like to run. I run every day, almost every day. I guess that's an extra activity.
It is. What about, do you run the same way that you walk, where you just randomly go directions and figure out where you are?
No, because I mean, you can't really run that way in New York, or you're gonna run people over or run right into everyone. I run in a park, in a track. I run around, do a few miles.
What park are we talking?
It is McCarran Park, and
Okay.
I guess it's technically, I live in Greenpoint, but it's technically Williamsburg.
Okay. That's, I was wondering if it's some of the parks that I know that are down there.
They have a very nice park.
What's your, I'm trying to ask like weird questions to see where we go with these. So like, you like to run, you like to walk. Do you like to get lost?
If I don't have like a time and somewhere to be, then yeah, I wouldn't mind getting lost. But if I had to be somewhere, that would make me really nervous. But being lost where your day is open, that's totally fine. I like to find new things.
What about like, and this is gonna make me sound like I'm from the country, but I would feel like getting lost in the woods is very different than getting lost in New York. And is there a yeah, I mean,
you can't really get lost in New York. The streets are numbered, so
yeah,
you always kind of know where you are.
Yeah. There's a cab you can flag down to get home if you need.
Yeah.
But have you ever like have you ever gone in the city and really like lost track of where you are when you're walking, to the point where you're like, you have to do some assessment of like, how the hell do I get home from here? Or is it, when you say like you go out and you just figure out where you're going, do you automatically still know like you're not going so far?
There can be somewhat of a plan sometimes, like, oh, we really want to walk over this bridge and that to get into Manhattan. And so that but maybe once you're in Manhattan, you just you're not sure where you're going to end up, and you just see where you are, and, oh, that coffee shop looks nice, let's go in there, sort of thing. Which is a really fun thing to do. But you're never like lost just because of the way New York is. You can, in a minute you can figure out where you are. You
can literally turn to the person next to you and go, where are we?
But it's fun.
You can't do that with a tree.
Not have a plan.
Yeah. What's your go-to spot for, like, as artists? Obviously, you mentioned that idea of like being able to walk with your iPad and being able to do work sort of out and about if you have to. Is there a spot that you haunt regularly?
That I haunt regularly? We don't draw in the park a lot. That's right by where I live at McGurlick Park. It's like a really, really, really tiny park that really just has people that live in the neighborhood because it's so small. It's just like little kids and people walking their dogs. But it's very shady, and it's nice to draw there. And it's very close to me, so that's probably the park I'm at the most.
When you do that, do you get like little kids coming up going, what are you drawing?
Oh, no, because I'm not in the playground area. So you really don't. They're all at the playground. I like to sit near the dog side.
So do the dogs come up and say, what are you drawing?
I do like to draw the dogs as they walk by.
I mean, you're telling me
that is always fun.
That they have a playground and you're not sitting on the swings drawing?
Well, you can't go into the playground without kids, Mark. You can't just like go sit in the playground.
Wait. Okay, so the New York thing. This is like, if I want to go to the playground here, I can go to the playground and just hang out.
Yeah, you can't sit in a playground here unless you have a child.
Like, there's signage that says that?
There is.
Oh, what kind of creeps do you have in New York?
Well, it's New York.
What neighborhood are you?
This is everywhere. You really can't go to a playground unless you have a kid with you.
What?
I think it's pretty normal.
I mean, I understand, like, yeah, like if I show up at a playground, it's probably like people might question if I'm like playing on the swings and going like, you want to play tag? Um, I think I understand that side of it, but like New York doesn't want to have fun.
I don't think it's that. Well, the dog park is really fun. You could go there.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that probably is actually more exciting than.
I think it's way more fun.
Yeah. I never knew that like you couldn't go to a playground unless like I can understand like right now I can't go to the school playground while school is off. Like
well, if it's empty, you could probably go in. I don't think anyone would question you unless you're doing something weird. But I don't know how we got on this, but I do see a question from someone. Where did the idea from FERN OTTO come from?
I like that I'm asking these questions. You're like, can we go back to the questions on the read? Wait, who is it from? Oh, this is from Bill Illustrated saying, where did the idea for FERN OTTO come from? Okay, yes. Let's answer that, and then we'll go back to that playground talk.
Okay. So, okay. FERN OTTO, well, were characters that I was just drawing a lot in my sketchbook, and Otto is a little orange cat, and he was definitely based on my orange cat that I had for 19 years named Bustafer, who had a really strong personality. And the Fern character was more, probably more me. And, these are just two friends who hang out, and Fern likes to draw and make stories and that sort of thing. It just kind of grew out of, sketchbook ideas. And I had, in my dummy book, it actually had less of a fairy tale aspect to it, and but had some. I showed it to my agent, and he really wanted me to explore the fairy tale aspect of it, and I went back and rewrote it and did that, and it became FERN OTTO, where they meet a lot of different characters from nursery rhymes and fairy tales. Yeah.
You have an agent too. You have one of the agents, Mr. Malk, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm really, really lucky to work with Steve. He's been at the with me since the beginning of my career. Really, really has been very helpful. He saw my work randomly, back in probably 2011 or so. I don't know if you remember the site called Illustration Mundo.
Yes.
By Nate Williams' site.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had my work up there, and Nate Williams did like a little blog feature on my work, and Steve happened to see it, and he emailed me, and I just about had a heart attack when I saw who he represented. So it was. Of course, I said, yes, I'd love to work with you.
Yeah,
and
he's
that kind
a little
of really
name for those who don't know. He is a powerhouse within the kidlit rep world. Yeah. He works with some of the biggest names out there, including Stephanie Graegin.
Well, I was definitely a very small name. It was like Lane Smith was on there and stuff. So it was like, books people that I'd read as a kid even. So it was crazy, and he's great. So I feel very, very lucky that he happened to see my work that day. It's just a lot of it is random luck. Like, if he didn't look at the blog that day, who knows?
I totally forgot about Illustration Window. That was like, I remember that being a good resource of just like a way to find a bunch of great artists and whatnot.
Yeah.
That was, I forget, Nate Williams was an illustrator, or not was, is an illustrator, correct?
Yeah.
And just started this thing, and do you know why it stopped? Because I remember all of a sudden it just stopped happening. I assume maybe just the upkeep of it was a lot.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm guessing maybe it just became too much, and then social media grew, and maybe it wasn't as necessary. I'm not sure actually, but it was super helpful. I'm so grateful to his site, because without that, I don't know if I would have gotten into making, been able to do all the projects I've done.
Yeah.
Because being seen by the right people at the right time is so much luck goes into it.
I had no idea when that site was up and running that Illustration Mundo actually just meant like Illustration World. Uh, I had not pieced it together for a long, long time. Like by the time the thing was shutting down, I was like, oh, it was like so dense on that. I mean, I knew what the site was, but I just like, I did not connect that that was a word that meant something else. I thought it was just some fun like play of letters, and it sounded cool, and that was about it. I was not very observant, let's put it that way.
You know, I don't know if I really thought about it like that either. It was just, it was what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought maybe like it was some like fun inside joke or something, and like literally it just means illustration world, or world of illustration or what have you. Was there, obviously you put stuff up on there, were you trying to do lots of marketing for yourself prior? Like were you, like, you know, Stephen Malk found you, but he discovered you. But were you out there actively like pursuing, like, I got to get my name on these, in these locations in front of people, etc., or was it more of just I'm gonna put some stuff on things and see what happens?
It was a variety of stuff because, well, the world was really different then. Like I would sometimes drop off portfolios at publishing houses here. Yep. There would be days where you could drop off a physical portfolio. I mean, I doubt they do that anymore. So, you know, you're printing out things and turning in your little booklet and, you know, picking it up at the end of the day sort of thing. I was sending out, you know, like the postcards and, you know, 8x10 sheets with illustration examples on them. Yeah, trying just about everything at that point. But my work still wasn't developed enough and wasn't quite right at that point before the Steve point and Illustration Mundo point. But right around the
like
time, right before I met Steve, actually, my work was, you know, I got to a point where I knew the work was better. Like I was using pencil and computer instead of, I'd been using pen and ink before. And I put together a portfolio booklet with all the new work. And I sent out, you know, like probably 100 of those little booklets to editors and stuff.
Yeah.
And I started getting callbacks like within a couple weeks of that. And it just happened that Steve contacted me like the exact same time. So everything just kind of happened at once for me, which was very handy to have an agent once people really do want to work with you. So it just, I was lucky it fell into place at the right time.
It can somehow be beneficial to have someone there that can guide you through all the craziness of contracts and
yeah, contracts are really confusing. You definitely, I mean, some people don't have agents, but I think they're very important. I wouldn't want to not have one.
Yeah, I've always had one, and I understand like it's an interesting thing because I in my teaching, even today we were talking about agents and sort of what's there, and students were saying, well, I heard that you shouldn't have an agent that you have to pay. And I'm like
then why would they work for you?
Yeah, I know. I was like, what do you mean by that? And we had to sort of boil that down, and it came down to the idea of what they were trying to hit at is there are rumors out there that there are this cohort of agents that say you have to pay me to do the work for you on top of, like, in order to go advertise you.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, don't pay them. They should be making you money, and you're paying them out of the money they make. And
weird.
Most of the agents, like I assume in your case, and I don't, if you don't want to share this, it's fine, but most of the agents get paid and then they dole out the money to you.
Yes,
that's
correct.
Every once in a while, I'll have an agent where you get paid and you have to pay the agent. You have to take the split and pay the agent because the money came directly to you based on your agreement or whatever. And I've heard of that happening, not as often, but I had to walk the student through of like, what do you mean by paying? And
wow.
Yeah. But they are very helpful. It's weird how someone who is like there fighting for you actually does an amazing amount of work for you and really can get you through stuff like you said, the contract side of things. I am not someone who loves a contract. I can read through it and I understand it, but like negotiating a contract, I'm not a good negotiator. I cave too easily. Like, don't get me in a cool street market because I'm just going to immediately just go, yeah, that sounds right, and pay them whatever.
Yeah, you really need a professional taking care of that, because there's just so many different aspects of it. I mean, they're so long and confusing, and I think you can be taken advantage of if you don't have an agent. So it's definitely essential. Like unless you have know a really good lawyer or something that can read every contract for you. But they also guide you on your career, give you advice on your books. They do so much more than just the contract, that it's really good to have someone in your corner who's cheering you on and, can give you good advice.
Even that idea of like someone who can read through a contract is wonderful, but if they don't understand what's expected or what should be expected, like the equivalent of they might understand and say like, well, this is what they're saying in this paragraph, but that's different than knowing what you can get away with or what you can ask for or where you can negotiate on things and other things that you can't, because that comes with experience of being in that industry or, having worked with that publisher before or whatever variables come into play there. Are there things that you sort of dread doing as an illustrator?
That I dread doing? Like in the process? Contracts are one thing, but are there other things that you're like, ugh, I just don't enjoy this part of the job? Well, taxes for sure. Let's see. There's not really anything that I don't like about the illustration process. There's certain things I don't like to draw as much.
Okay, tell me what those are.
I don't like to draw cars that much, which, unless they can be really, really odd cars, but they still drive myself crazy with them. It's definitely not my thing to draw cars.
Is it, are you trying to be realistic with the cars? Is that the...
No, because like in the long ride home, I have a car there's almost on every page of the book. And I was like, why did I do that? I ended up having to make like a little clay model of the car in order just to like visualize it from different places.
But that one's almost realistic in my mind. Like I'm so used to just like, I'm gonna draw this weird little like hat with wheels, and like that's my car.
I guess compared to it's all relative.
Yes.
It's not a realistic car, but yeah, somewhat realistic.
You didn't realize your hyper realism?
I had no clue.
Like I can't tell. I looked at your car. I looked out the window at the street, and I was like, I'm pretty sure it's the exact same thing on this page. That's one that I think a lot of people, especially in the kidlit world, struggle with, because we're not the architecture people. We're not someone who likes to get out a ruler and like get perspective to be the absolute best. We're all about story, and so
I definitely struggle with that.
I'm very, very much generalizing, but that idea of like that is not of my interest to be all that excited about the aerodynamics of a car in an illustration. I rather care about the character that's in the car doing something.
Exactly.
Let's see. I'm trying to figure out. I think I'm going to do a pie. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm illustrating here.
I really don't know what I'm doing either. It's just very random.
I got the background started, and that's about it. But I think I'm going to do a can of like apple pie filling or something of the sort, and a little mouse carrying some of it away. That's all I got right now. We'll see where it goes.
Sounds good.
There's things that you don't like drawing. What are the things you do like drawing?
Oh, well, of course, bears and cats and hedgehogs, forest, little houses, boats.
Okay. Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Those are just fun to me. Like, I think some people do like drawing cars, but they probably drew cars as kids. I drew like little bunnies and little cats. And I'm still drawing the same thing.
Are you an animal person?
Yeah, I definitely am. I don't have a pet at the moment, but I love animals. And
so are you doing at the dog park then, huh? I thought that's not allowed.
I have friends that are dogs.
They say in New York you can't be in a dog park unless you have a dog, because otherwise you're a creep. But what was I gonna say? Oh, okay. If you're an animal person, you enjoy animals and things. I don't know many people that are like, "Are you an animal person?" And they go, "No." Like, those aren't the people I'm going to hang out with generally.
Yeah, that seems weird, but there probably are people like that.
Yeah, they should go away. Okay, so I'm going to ask a weird question now. If you were an animal, what would you want to be as an animal, and what would you actually be if you were an animal? Because like, there's the glamorous, like, oh, I want to be a cougar or a well, cougar has a whole nother meaning, but I want to be like a sleek panther. And then there's like, well, in reality, I'd probably be some sort of bullfrog, or, you know, like those kind of like arguments. So what would be, I'm not saying that's my case, but what would be your desire, your hope and dream as an animal, and then what would be your reality?
I mean, it'd be nice to be a bird, to be able to fly around, but I think I'd probably be a little tabby cat, just, you know, sitting on someone's couch.
There's a little lazy tabby cat.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I could answer the same question.
Yeah, what would yours be?
What would I want to be? I'd want to be probably like, I'd probably want to be like a lion or something that's like majestic, but in reality, I think I'd still be big. I don't think I'd be something small. But do you know that weird looking bear that like always looks like it's kind of sleepy? And oh, there's like a meme of this bear that looks like he just woke up.
Like
his hair all
a brown
up.
bear?
Yeah, like that, or I'd be some sort of like one of those bears that's like so big or oafish that it struggles to get around now.
Oh my God.
It's like, you know, like late in the salmon season.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, what is going on with that one? I'd be that bear. I want to be the cool one that's like out there roaring at people and like shredding trees and stuff with my claws. I'd be the one that's a little full. Yeah. And
you're eating at the picnic, you know, at the people's picnics and stuff.
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't be the cool one like scaring them off. I'd be the one like, oh, this is you left this out, and I found it, more so than scaring people away from their food. Is there an animal that you? I have an answer for this one for sure. Is there an animal that you look at and you're like, I don't want that animal on this planet anymore?
Snakes. I really don't like snakes. Yeah.
Why? What did they do to you?
Oh, they just creep me out, but they're pretty creepy. Like, they're not affectionate. They just want to eat other well, a lot of animals eat other animals. There's just something really disturbing about them to me. I don't think they feel empathy or like a mammal does. You can't like cuddle up with them. Not a fan.
Now there's probably some like snake wrangler that's watching going, no, you can cuddle up with them. It's like getting bitten on the neck in the process.
Yeah.
I understand I love the fact that they don't have empathy, that you get into this like human, like they clearly have a problem with authority.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, your cat isn't going to eat you unless you're dead, but you know, you have a pet snake, it might.
And if your cat eats you because you're dead, that's just part of nature.
That's totally acceptable.
You asked for it, and you died in front of your cat. I bet. Do you think there are people that get eaten by cats?
I've heard it happens. I don't know if it's just like an old wives' tale, but I think it's possible. I mean, that's a really horrible thing to think about, though.
Okay, for the audience that's listening, if any of you have been eaten to death by a cat, what I want you to do is hop in those comments and let us know if you suffered the wrath of of a kitty. Especially, it's one of those kitties that's that tabby that you said. You think it's all nice and happy, and it's sitting there in the sun, and the next thing you know, you turn around, and it's got a big toe in its mouth, and it's down. I'm trying. Okay, I'm trying to think of other fun questions that are not. Do you want to eat paint or be eaten by a cat? Yeah. Okay. Here's. Okay. You said that you did all these Edward Gorey dark things before, so I'm feeling this may be fair game. If this is too much, you holler.
Okay.
It popped into my head, and bear with it. If you had to go out on this mortal coil, in like a really weird way, like Darwin Award, what would be the way that would, like, would you want to go out like eating too much popcorn, or what gluttonous activity or crazy activity would you want to do? Would you want to just like go up into space without a spacesuit?
Oh my.
What's the thing? You didn't know you were going to.
Wow. No, I was not prepared for what weird way I would like to die. Really not prepared for that. Wow. Yeah, I can honestly say no one has ever asked me that. Ever.
You need to be challenged. You went to grad school. You didn't have these kind of questions in grad school?
We did not. Wow. Well, what about you? What would yours be? I have to think on this.
Let's see. Okay, if I had to go out, what would be the? I mean, I would want it to be epic. Like the idea of like sitting in my own house and eating too much, like that's too close to home already. I don't know if it's like,
yeah.
I want it to be something more like
exciting.
I want it to be something that's newsworthy. Like, oh, this guy he did this crazy thing, and like you hear those like Darwin stories of people who like tie balloons to themselves and they float out over the sea, and that's how they disappear, what have you.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah,
yeah.
It'd be pretty amazing.
You have like a nice view at least before you go. Yeah.
I do think the idea of like thinking that I'm like in a very like not safe situation, but like the equivalent of if there's, you know what? Smothered under puppies.
Oh, that's a really good one. Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's probably a point in there where you go like, this isn't good. This is too many puppies. But like for a good portion of that time, you're like, this is the best thing ever. And so I might put that on there, but I'd want it to be something where it's like a spectacle, where it's like he's going for the world record of puppy petting or something. Like, oh, he's at 109 puppies, and then all of a sudden 110 does it.
Oh my God.
Right, this is a weird.
Wow.
There's people like tuning in are like, what
are they talking about?
Okay.
My cat. Someone does say my cat tries to eat me alive every opportunity gets. So that is. Yeah,
it's not that far off. Now, let's see. Well, let's go to a happy thing. Let's go to, what is your favorite childhood memory, and does it somehow affect your artwork?
My favorite. Wow. I think it was, we used to go to in the summertime for a couple weeks. We would go rent a house on Lake Michigan, and there weren't many people around, and you'd go down to the lake every day and just swim, and there was like a little tiny foresty area that you would look for bugs in, and that sort of collect frogs. We caught a lot of frogs then. It was just a couple weeks of just absolute that kind of fun of swimming and looking for bugs and things. I think that was definitely my favorite childhood memory, because I don't think I've ever it's hard to capture that again as an adult.
When you say Lake Michigan, what state were you in when you were at?
It was somewhere in Michigan, but I honestly don't remember what part of it was, but yeah.
It also sounds like so, this is gonna, it sounds awful to me because my first initial thought is like, anytime I ever stepped into Lake Michigan, it was on the Minnesota side, and that's a little bit higher up.
Oh, really?
And so all of a sudden it was freezing cold. You know, it was not, to me, that was never a swimming lake.
Oh, this was not, I mean, it was a little bit cold, but it was, you know, it was in the summertime. It was totally fine. I feel like it was a little bit rocky. Like we might have worn those like rubber shoes or something like that, but I don't remember it being cold, but it was probably like July. So it wasn't bad. It was really, really great. I mean, the waves were huge, and you feel like you're at the ocean because you can't see an end point. It was just really nice. We would spend, all our time at the beach. Even at night, you go down and have these long like walks, looking for things, throwing rocks in the water. It's just really relaxing, really nice place to be.
We used to have family that lived up in I think it was Ann Arbor or something of that sort, that was like right on the on the lake that we'd go up to their place, and I remember playing shuffleboard.
Oh, nice.
Like, real hip things to do when you're 13.
Yeah. I was about that, like between the ages of 8 and 13, I think, when we were going there.
Go up there, my parents would play bridge, and I'd do I see Tom Wiltell said that he just arriving late to this. Love Stephanie's work. I just presented to 150 kids earlier today.
Oh, wow.
Do you all present, and do you love it? Do you get nervous? Any presentation tips or tricks?
Oh my God.
Are you getting out there in front of those kids? Do they let that happen in New York?
I don't do that many school visits. I've never done 150 kids. That's a lot of kids. Wow.
That's
yeah. I mean, I've done some like presentations at like conferences and stuff where it's like a room full of adults. That is very nerve-wracking. I get very nervous, of course. You hope you enjoy it once you start, actually doing it. I feel like the first couple minutes are the worst. And then you're always really glad you do it when you're done. But yeah, I don't know if I'm necessarily the best presenter. So he might have tips for me.
Yeah.
Like 150 kids. Wow. Yeah.
What about you? What do you? Yeah, it's the role reversal here. Is it the nervousness? Is there, like, I get nervous doing those not because of the kids. I get nervous because of the adults.
Yes, it's the adults, honestly. Like, even when I do a story time, I'll get a little bit nervous because you look out to it might even only be like 20 people or something, but I feel like there'll be like 2 adults and then, one little baby for each group of people. So you're like, oh, I'm really reading to like a room full of people my age. This little picture book, the babies aren't even paying attention. So that can be, if you really think, you have to try not to think about it, because if you really think about it, then that's when you do poorly.
Those babies, and you got to say, come on, paying attention. Everybody, I am here. I just got asked the other day to do host a book fair thing. There's like 3 hosts, and we're supposed to meet actually next week and talk about sort of the plan. A very well-loved bookstore that's in the area called Silver Unicorn does a kids graphic novel festival.
Oh, that's cool.
That actually, last time we went was the first year, and we thought it was going to be, a few hundred people. I mean, they had buses that were busing people in from different parts of town because they couldn't park people nearby. It must have been easily 1,000 people that rolled through this place, if not more.
Oh,
and this year they asked me if I would host a thing in this church or auditorium or something that's next to them. And now they just asked me, would I do one of these live sessions there? And what's funny is, like, it doesn't scare me to do this here because there's no face, really.
Mm-hmm.
I can sit here and work, and we can talk, and we don't have to sit there and go like look at each other and study our faces the whole time, because that would be horrifying if you had to do that with me. You'd see all the plastic surgery that I've got. But it's something about this other environment, sort of like, oh, there's a lot of pressure to perform live in front of people versus on screen. And so I have to figure out what's going to happen and how it's going to work, but I will do it. I will do it.
Yeah. That sounds really fun. But it's the sort of thing that, you'll probably be so thrilled while you're doing it and like have such a rush afterwards.
Yeah.
But, the lead up to it, you feel sick, I'm sure, I
mean, I do okay with public speaking just because of teaching. That's easier for me to do, but it's something about that one in particular I think is a little more threatening, because I think performing here, like if I make a mistake, at the end of the day, this just ends up on my Instagram, and like people can look at it, and if I'm sitting here and I'm like, oops, I made a mistake and I got to move this around, or this color didn't work, or anything of the sort, that's one thing. But if I'm up on a stage and everybody's literally watching me and I make a mistake, that just it'll sting a little.
Yeah.
Run off and cry.
It is harder to draw with like those Sharpie markers on those pads in front of people than it is. I feel like my drawings never look as good when you have to do that.
I was about to say the same. I don't think my work when I do that, like you ask me at home here to do something with paint and I can like paint you a lovely thing or whatever it may be. You ask me to do that Sharpie marker thing and I'll do something. The kids are always like, yay, they're excited. But it looks nothing like the quality that I want it to be.
Yes, exactly.
It's the rush factor.
Yeah.
And it's the like not having the time to like even take a minute to think about what you're doing. It's I just got to draw in front of them because I have a deadline.
Yeah.
Or I have 5 minutes left and I got to get this done. And then you hand it off. I don't know about you, but when I do those, I try to hand them off to the kids sometimes and just say like, okay, you requested this, you get this piece in the end. But oftentimes I'm sort of horrified that like somewhere in someone's house, this kid puts this up being like,
I know. Oh my God. Because I feel like they're like embarrassing, but like they look good to other people that don't draw, but that they're like bad. Like I had one a couple weeks ago at a story time where, the kids, you ask them what they want, what to draw or something. And this kid yelled out cow. And I thought, I don't know if I've ever really drawn a cow. That's like not an animal I usually draw. And then do I draw the udder? Like I was so like lost. It looked so bad. And I did it so quickly so I could move on to another animal. Yeah, I totally get that.
Well, you also play in a world where like the type of cow that you would draw would be very different than the type of cow that I would draw, and the type that I would draw would probably be a little bit more abstract in a way.
Yeah.
And so like you have that pressure. But the one thing that I have learned is I will draw a character from one of my books because that's easy enough, and I know how to do. But if I'm drawing something new, the best thing to do is to draw a monster for the kids. And the reason I say that is there are no rules of what it has to look like. So there's no like accuracy questions.
That is so smart. I'm going to steal that, Mark.
Yeah.
That's really smart.
It makes it easy. And what I've done for this in the past, like I've done things where I'm like, what do you want me to draw? And they say a unicorn. And I'm like, cool. Then I go, I forget how horses' faces look.
Yeah.
And how do I do? But a monster, you can just go, oh, it has a big nose today because I drew a big nose.
Exactly.
Or what have you. But the one thing that I do that I think helps in that situation or makes it feel more lively than just I'm drawing what I want to draw is I ask the kid, I'll pick like 3 kids and I'll say, how many legs do you want? And they'll yell out a number, or, how many eyes should it have? And then I just draw whatever, I just draw like 4 eyes and then a few legs and then connect the dots basically. And you sort of solve their challenge fairly quickly. But it's that is a dangerous world, especially if you try to do something that's either hyper realistic or very specific.
Yeah.
That they want, like,
yeah,
draw
mine are
me a
not
Ninja
realistic.
Turtle.
So. Oh, I know. I would be in trouble if they asked for like a specific cartoon. Though my favorite request recently was a little boy wanted in his book. He's like, "Can you draw me a dinosaur and a banana?" It's like, okay.
What?
A dinosaur and a banana. Yeah.
Like
Very odd.
interacting with each other, or
I ended up drawing them separately. You know, the banana ended up being a super banana with like a little cape, and it's actually a toy I had when I was a kid, weirdly enough. But
was it?
Yeah.
Was it you looking at yourself in a mirror, asking for?
It was not.
Oh, good suggestion.
I know it was. It's like, wow, I can do that. Can anyone else suggest a banana?
You're like, how many people out there want to see me draw a dinosaur and a banana? Oh, perfect.
Yeah, no more cows. No more cows.
For the most part, like when I do those drawings, it is very much a last minute, like I got 5 minutes left kind of thing, and I got to draw something, and it is. I feel like that may be the hardest part, honestly, for most of the time, partially because of the self-implied pressure of I got to make this drawing look good, and then also part of it is. Like I said, I'm more afraid that the adults in the room are going to see through the ruse, and they're going to go, "Oh, you're not that good." Like little kids are going to be like, "This is amazing," and then there's going to be some adult in the background that I'm going to see just roll their eyes a little too much, and I'm going to be horrified because I know that they understand that, like, I'm just winging this whole thing, and I don't really know what I'm doing.
That's probably not actually happening, but I can totally understand why you would feel that way.
Yeah. No, I'm sure it doesn't happen in that same or to that level. But I mean, this is the like classic paranoia of an artist of like the imposter syndrome that shows up outside of the art making of being in those situations, and a kid goes, asks like, "How many books have you worked on?" And you tell them the number. And they go, "Well, the last person that was here did this many." And, like those kind of, I've never had that happen, but I have a fear that will happen.
Yeah. And I wouldn't even remember how many books I've worked on. I'd have to, like,
my wife,
Google it.
My wife said it was like 4, right? You worked on 4? Do you have a guess as to how many?
I mean, I've written 4 now. I've illustrated over 20 something, so I really don't know. It's over 20. That's
insane. How many author copies are sitting around your house that you don't know what to do with?
A whole bookshelf full. But I mean I give them away to people and stuff, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, I have a box of, or not a box. I have boxes sitting here that I need to like to dump off at some point and get, send them away as contest things or all sorts of odds and ends. My wife wrote down that most adults can't really draw, so everyone is probably impressed no matter what. And that's probably true.
That's really true.
But,
yeah.
But even if you say that, there's the back of my brain that's going, this person knows and they understand that I'm a liar. They're gonna call me out in front of all these little kids, and then they're gonna stampede me and crush me to death like those puppies. This is wow. Okay, dark again. What?
Those visits, yeah.
You really didn't know what this conversation, where it was going to go, huh?
I had no idea. Yeah, I'm still thinking about that question of the weird way to die, but I haven't.
So
I haven't come up with it yet.
I had this. I've probably said on here before, but I had this idea at one point of starting a podcast that was called Way to Go, and it was actually about like weird deaths and like if you had to die, what would you want your funeral to be like? kind of thing, but like with comedians to see what they would say. Like I had a friend when I was working in an animation studio that I don't think he would ever do it, and my wife would not want him to. But if I were to die, I asked him if he would do, you know what rim shots are on a drum? The little, like, but don't.
Oh yeah,
that little noise. I wanted him to do those while someone was giving my eulogy. So no matter what they said, it would sound sarcastic. So like if they're like, you know, Mark was a really great person. Like it ruins the moment. I think that's hilarious. And I think that'd be so funny to have something in that situation. Or the one that I wanted a swivel, like if I was in a coffin, I wanted a little swivel point. So if someone leaned on the coffin a little too hard, the whole thing would swivel over and I'd fall out.
Oh my God.
Like those, like all the
You've really thought about this.
Oh yeah, no. And the best one I came up with a couple years ago is I want to have some sort of like spring attachment underneath my eyelids. So if a person comes up and they look at me, they can do that classic movie moment of like closing my eyes, and then they spring back open for the next person to be able to do it that's in line.
Oh my God.
They can just go down the line. Everybody can have that little magic movie moment of like, he's no longer with us. Close my eyes. So, what do you want at your funeral?
That is nuts. Yeah, that's the thing I normally think about. But you won't be there to enjoy it, so that kind of sucks. Maybe you need to fake your death. So. Or
will I?
Yeah.
Maybe it's all a mannequin, and I'm in the back laughing my ass off. Yeah, that's the kind of brain that I have, just to give you a warning.
Wow.
These are the so yes, kidlit, kids. Here I am talking about
you need that brain to make your art, so it's all good.
Okay, so I'm making myself look like some sort of like psycho person. What is something that you feel like is weird about you? Someone's going to call the cops on you and say, you got to come pick up this person because they're doing this. What is it you're doing?
Oh my God. I don't know. Wow, you really stumped me.
Is your husband in the background of any sort?
No, I think he's in another room, so
he's like,
he might have an answer for that, but
he's writing a list of like how he's going to get me back for all of this. You don't ever ask my wife those questions.
Oh my God. I don't know. I don't think I'm sure there's people that think I'm weird, but I don't think I'm that weird where, you know, I have people calling up, what the heck is she doing? Like,
I don't know. I don't think the cops will ever be called on me.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there isn't the slight chance that at some point in the future I'm running down the street screaming something and people are questioning my sanity. Okay, so what about okay, let's talk about serious stuff. Wait, my wife says you're making the stakes too high. Don't ask what she does that would make someone call the cops. Okay, what about, okay, let's not.
Are you trying to get me in trouble?
Admit it. Where were you on the night? What about, is there something that people look at that they say like, oh, you're really good with this other, like, you know, you're good at telling a joke, or you're good at empathy, or you're not a snake and you're good at empathy. Are there things that are like quintessentially like elements of your personality that you think show up in your writing and in your work and stuff along that lines?
I am a really nice person who people aren't going to call the police on.
You know who says that? It's the person who the cops are calling. I swear, I didn't do anything. I wasn't at this park with these kids playing on the swing set drawing. Is there I just, this is, I don't know where this conversation has gone so far.
I'm not weird enough to answer these questions.
There are some deep, dark secrets that are going to pour out at some point in this conversation. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. You can't walk in and say, I don't want part of this. Yeah, you're really law-abiding, my wife says. That is until the until the moment.
It's probably pretty boring, so that's
part of this is in a collegiate atmosphere where we have silly art talk. Like, today we were talking about the reality of going to art school, and this will relate to you, like what an experience it is versus like if you think about colleges, sometimes the colleges are these like, you know, I'm going to have a lecture hall, there's going to be 400 students in the space, and we're all going to like learn about art history, or we're going to learn about economics or what have you. But then we also have this experience of like pretty early on, probably freshman year, we were stuck in a room where someone just strips down and you draw them. And
yeah,
that is an art experience that we all go through, and we've all lived that in a way. I had an amazing story from a student today. We have this model at school, Dan, who is amazing. He's been around for years. He is like I imagine when you went to school, there was the same thing. There was probably like models that you knew by name because they just had history at the school.
Oh yeah, they always use the same like few people, I think, over and over again. Yeah, for sure.
Dan was this person, and it was a freshman class. It was the day one where they all come into class and they're getting ready to like have a drawing class, and the teacher was not there. He was late. And so Dan, the model, said he was the teacher and that everybody needs to get drawing materials out and we're going to get going. And then he just started to strip in front of everybody.
Oh my God.
And I think that is like the funniest thing to me, of like all these students thinking that that's the teacher, and then all of a sudden he's just stripping down. I
think you might have people being really freaked out.
Oh yeah,
it's hilarious, like looking like if you looked back on it, but yeah, if that was actually happening. Wow.
Like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
In front of me.
Yeah.
And that
life drawing is shocking the first time you do it, but of course. I just remember like looking around at the other students, and so many people's faces were like bright red. So,
yeah.
But you get used to it like really, really quick, and then it's not a big deal. But yeah, at first it's super awkward.
Drawing teacher, that was I think the second day that we had of art college, and he had us do blind contour drawings, so we couldn't look away from the model, and if you did, he would call you out in front of everybody, like, you know, Mark, eyes back on the model.
Oh God.
Kind of like, I think it was good because it got us over it so fast.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like after a couple classes, you're over it, and it just becomes a normal everyday class thing.
we did talk about, and this is like for anybody that's never been to art school, this is a classic situation too, of how we were talking about this today, about that freshman year. There's all these great drawings of like figures and all these portraits. Their heads are really immaculate and whatnot. But then there's that one area on all of them that just kind of gets blurred. No one is comfortable drawing that area. It doesn't matter. Like you may have been working on it all year, but that one area you just kind of like, yeah, I'm not going to put the detail there.
Yeah, definitely.
Like,
for sure.
Every art school student knows that day where like you're like, I can't put the focus.
Or it's when it's awkward when we had some classes where some students drew themselves, you know.
Oh yeah.
So those critiques are to me a little awkward. It's like, oh, we're seeing way more of you than we really should. Yeah.
I've gotten to the point now, which is sort of on another end of the spectrum, where I'm teaching, and we have some former students that are models.
Ah.
And so like I have this like, oh, I had you in class and now here you are modeling in front of the classroom. And I know it's all like kosher, there's nothing wrong with it or anything of the sort, but it does feel like I shouldn't be in that place.
Yeah, that would feel awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It is an experience though. Are there experiences from school that you can look back and go like, that was not necessarily like an awful experience or anything of the sort, but like a weird experience beyond sort of that end of it? Do you have like fun stories from when you were in school?
There was a girl that I worked with that was also a model for one of the classes, and that was really weird. Yeah, you kind of don't want it to be people that you see outside of that classroom situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. It's been a while since I've thought about this. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely awkward moments for sure.
We had models that like had medical issues that didn't want to leave in the middle of the drawing.
Oh God, and I didn't have that. Yeah. Oh.
One of my favorite ones is like teachers that would call you out for something that they didn't know. Like there was the equivalent of I have a friend who had a I don't know if it was a genetic disorder or whatnot, but his thumbs were a little bit odd, and they're a little bit strange shape. And the teacher, of course, it was like early on freshman year, and we all had to do hand drawings, and the teacher goes, "Okay, whoever did this one obviously wasn't looking at their hand."
Oh, that's so awful.
And then he goes, "Who was this?" And my friend raised his hand. Of course, the teacher can see the difference and how it was actually accurate, and then immediately was horrified by what he said. But I mean, the teacher doesn't know.
Yeah,
I
I feel bad for the teacher in that situation, because you wouldn't know, and then you would feel so terrible.
There was a story when I was in undergrad. I had this teacher who made amazingly highly rendered like mythological illustrations and things of the stuff. Now he does sort of like, I don't even know how to describe it, like almost wallpaper kind of like really like pattern based images and whatnot. But in his class, he told us this story about on day one, he asked all the students to go home and look up artists that they like and artists that they don't like, and to bring those in for the class. And everybody was, came in with all these different references. And of course, this was a time wherein, you didn't have the internet to go search artists. You had to use books to find them. And the student who shows up super late comes in and sits down, and the teacher goes, "Okay, like, what do you have?" And the kid's like, "Well, here's one that I love." And they're all like, "Yeah, that's pretty good, blah, blah, blah." And he goes, "And what's the one that you don't like?" He goes, "This one by this guy named Oren Sherman. I don't know." And he goes, "But or no, he said this one." And the teacher goes, "Well, who is it?" And he goes, "This guy named Oren Sherman." And he goes, "Oh yeah, that name sounds familiar." And of course, it was the teacher.
Oh no.
It's the teacher's artwork as an example.
How does he not know his teacher's name? Oh,
yeah, he didn't know.
God.
I have students to this day that sometimes will say like Matt to me, and I'm like,
really?
Class the entire semester.
That is nuts.
You don't know it. But yeah, that one, like the student just didn't know and said that he didn't like this work by a guy named Oren Sherman, and that was the teacher. And of course, the whole class is in shock. They're like, "Oh, you just ruined your life."
Well, yeah, that's pretty bad actually, because you should know who your teacher is.
Yeah.
For an art class, you should probably know what work they do.
Wow,
that is awful.
I did an assignment once where we had to take a existing character and put them in a new location, and so I took Chewbacca and drew him in the style of the Jetsons and made him part of the Jetsons.
Fun.
And I was like, okay, I need to hide him. So I gave him a name, like there's George Jetson and whatnot. So I gave the character a name of Bill Jetson. And without thinking, the teacher's like, "Okay, explain what's going on in this piece." And I was like, "Well, I wanted to hide him in the Jetsons, like he's in this other universe. And I need to give him a real boring name. So I just gave him Bill." And the whole class just immediately looks at me like, "What did you just do?" And I'm like, what? And I'm like, well, just something that like just a common, boring name. And I still didn't get it.
Oh,
And
no.
all of a sudden, like I looked at my teacher and you could see that he was like, he didn't care. He wasn't upset, but he was clearly like, you forgot what my name was, didn't you? And it's so you calling him by his last name or like his full.
Oh my
He just
God.
did his first name and called him boring or his name boring.
Wow.
And what I meant was like a generic name, but I just didn't use the right words to solve that problem.
But he might know that his name is a little,
It's the most boring name ever.
Yeah, no offense to anyone named Bill, but like, yeah, he might know that. That's not as bad as the guy, saying that he hated his teacher's artwork.
Yes. I'm looking.
But yeah, that's still embarrassing.
I did a swatch of color in my studio, and now I can't find that swatch that I painted. I painted like a bright red chunk. Oh, maybe this is it. This is it. Never mind. I found it.
So you paint those pieces of paper. Do you know what they're going to be, or you just have like random scraps and then you put them
Sometimes I know these are gonna be little cans of cherries for like a cherry pie. Of some sort. And so I knew that I needed a color that would be like that would go with this palette somewhat, and so I paint this to match. But sometimes I have a whole scrap of colors over here. Like the colors of the cans for the most part are like found colors. Some of the colors for the ground plane here, found colors. So it's not like it's all pre-planned. But I have enough scrap lying around in a dirty enough studio at this point that if I need to find like, I need a dark blue, I probably have small bits of it lying around somewhere.
Nice.
So this is I imagine my studio is like 10 times messier than yours at this point. You got a little graphite dust here and there, and I got
Yeah, mine is really, really clean actually. Well, yeah, I don't. You work very differently.
I have thousands of pounds of used tracing paper all over the place. Now that you're working with the Adobe Fresco, are there things about that you think are not just like more efficient, but better than some of the analog materials, or is it?
I like that you can, immediately erase and you can like resize things. And when I'm drawing on paper, sometimes I find myself like going like, doing the finger motion to zoom in, which is like, it's really nice to be able to zoom in on the iPad. Yeah, there is something nice about it. I think it also like you can move pieces around, like you can move a character around easier than, if it was on paper, you can't really move it unless you cut it. So like figuring out composition sometimes can be easier for you have more freedom with it in some ways.
Are there things that you miss in doing that?
It's fun to draw with real pencils on paper for sure. And I still do that. I just don't do it for books. Yeah. So it's like you don't miss it completely because you still have it in your life, but for the purpose
you
of
thrown out all your pencils.
Yeah, I still
Done
have all
with these.
But for like deadlines and you don't really have that much time to make a book. I just find it easier to have a digital component. I honestly don't even know how people do books like 100% traditional. I think some people still mail them in, which is like seems insane.
I don't go that crazy. All my stuff is traditional, but I don't mail it.
You at least scan it and put it together. Yeah. I like to be able to go back and change things, and you can change colors easily. Like there's a lot you can do, and it's just another tool.
Yeah.
It's not any different from using pencils, and some people have hang-ups about digital, but I think you have to embrace it. It's the time we live in, and you need to turn your work in. quickly.
Let me ask you a loaded question. I like how we're going from these like horror stories and whatever, and now I'm going to ask you a real serious question. This is a deep one, honestly. AI, thoughts on it? Are you scared? Are you indifferent? Do you want to use it? Do you have problems with people using it?
I feel very on the fence about it. Like, I feel it's very gray. We really don't know what's going to happen with it.
Yeah.
It can do some really cool things, but yeah, I mean, it would be terrible if AI took all of our jobs. You know, you can go down a really depressing route that way, but you could also use it for, you know, if you need a reference for something really strange, you could, you know, put in a prompt and find, you know, get some ideas. There are ways AI can be used, like, helpfully, I think, and, you know, appropriately, but yeah, I don't think it's good for AI to be making like book covers and things like that. That's disturbing.
Are you fearful of it taking away your job?
Not my job in particular, because I don't think it could write and illustrate a good book. Like, it, and I think people want, you know, people buy a book because, you know, oh, they won an Oliver Jeffers or whoever, you know, they don't want an AI book. So I think if that's always going to be the case, that, well, hopefully that, you know, parents will want to read picture books to their kids that are made by actual people. Hopefully.
I mean, we were talking in class today a little bit about this, and you're of the era. You remember stock art from the 90s and how that was a big threat. And you know, it's still around, but it's not like people are going like, oh yeah, stock art is the end of illustration now. And I think maybe you and I are maybe in a ballpark where we don't have to worry as much. And I said this to the students, like, we have an established career, and we're not trying to get our name out there in situations where AI art potentially would be a challenge. Like, you're getting publishers coming to you, and those publishers clearly are probably not the people that are going to go, yeah, we're going to use AI to make a book cover, but a little mom and pop shop down the road that needs to make a t-shirt design for their ice cream shop. Who would normally go to a student or a recent alum or someone who's new to the industry and go, yeah, I'll hire you to make this t-shirt design, now can go make one with AI fairly quickly. And that's where I see the real risk. But I agree with you. Like, I don't think it's coming for picture books in the same way that it came for fantasy. The fantasy market probably needs to be a little bit more scared.
For sure. Like, those covers are so easy to make. Well, people are already making them in AI, and you can't even necessarily tell the difference between the ones that are and aren't. Something about that artwork just already looks AI-ish, if that's a word. So yeah, I would be really worried if that was my job. But yeah, I think what we do isn't. But I could see how people in school now would be worried about it. I don't know.
I mean, I told the students, like,
yeah,
we're also in an industry, like, if you find an industry that really appreciates artists, then you're not going to run into issues. Like, there's the equivalent of the picture book world. If they found out that there was like Simon and Schuster started using AI, there would be such a big backlash. And there would be probably legal implications of whose artwork is it really, and can they copyright it? And so there's this like very easy out in a situation where you work with a big company where they need to be a little bit more hesitant, or they need to be more careful than, again, that mom and pop shop down the road. And if the students get in the right arena of artwork or making, and they are, you know, making work for those companies that understand that they need to value a traditional sort of art maker and not the digital side, then it probably won't be much of an issue. But I don't know, it's a complicated one that I don't think we all have answers for, or we can easily sort of say, like, I got it solved.
Yeah, we just don't know. And I definitely, yeah, I think it'll definitely affect people starting out a lot more because you do rely on those little tiny projects to get your
Yeah.
name out there, well, just to get started. But you can't really live off a lot of those projects anyway. I don't think.
Oh,
I don't.
yeah.
Maybe you can, but I mean, I don't think I could. But
$100 here, $100
yeah.
there is not.
So they're kind of like side projects anyway, and I don't know, illustration is something that you can't go into as a student thinking you're going to have a regular salary as soon as you get out of school. You are going to probably have other jobs. I'm sure you're going to have other jobs. So, and it can take years to get established. So, yeah, I don't really have a good answer for that, but
yeah,
it's depressing for sure.
It's depressing, but honestly, I'm not as scared of it, and I don't think that people need to be as scared of it as potentially as what they are. I don't think it should be used in the way that people are using it, but I don't think it's a long-term threat, assuming that your clientele are on the up and up.
Exactly. But I do think you're right that little tiny projects that people might do for a friend of a friend or something for a couple $100.
Yeah.
Those will probably go to AI, but yeah, I mean, yeah, a big company is probably not going to be doing that.
That becomes a question at that point of like, are those the jobs that you really want? And how do you market yourself for a larger sort of clientele, or how do you stand out so someone can't use AI to get the same effect or the same sort of treatment? Is there when you were starting out, what was one of the biggest fears you had?
Biggest fears? I just, you just fear it's not going to work out because it's such a hard thing to break into. It's really not easy at all. And even once you start getting projects, you don't know when the next one's coming.
Yeah.
So
are you full-time right now? Full-time illustration?
I've always had another day job, like always, because I want health insurance. I don't want to have to stress about things like that. Like, I don't want to have to take projects that I don't want to do.
If you don't mind me asking, just for the sake of like, if I have students listening or people who are like one of the discussions we had today was about people shouldn't be ashamed of having a day job. Like, one of the statistics that I read to them was 73% of illustrators say that they struggle or would struggle to have a full-time freelance career. And it was something like 26 have a day job where they do creative stuff, 17% have a creative or a non-creative day job, and then I think it was 45% are actually full-time freelance or something of the sort. Which sounds like shocking numbers, but I also think that there's a stigma that, like, if you don't make it in art and you're not full-time, that you haven't really made it. And so I was talking about the stigma of just like, it's okay if you have a day job. Is your day job creative? It
is not, which I actually really like that it's not creative. It's remote and like website stuff. I like it because it is, reliable. It doesn't stress me out, and there's nice people I work with, but yeah, I think the book world is really unstable. So you don't want to necessarily just rely on that for everything. And you get health insurance through a regular job and a lot of important things that you need. Yeah, so there's no shame in having another job at all, because I feel like very few people don't have something else, or if they're just doing books, they're either huge, or maybe they have a rich spouse, or something else might be going on where they are able to not have the day job. But it's much safer and healthier to not have to worry about paying your rent and your health insurance for sure.
I say to the students all the time that I'm actually in support of what you argued, in the sense of a day job that is not creative sometimes be more rewarding, in the sense that not just because, hey, maybe it pays better or what have you, but more so that you just don't tap out your creative ability.
Yes.
Get home.
Yeah. 100%. If I was drawing for work and then going home and having to draw for, for my stuff, like there's absolutely no way I could do that. That's just like too much. So there's no shame in having a completely separate thing that you do. That's not related at all. I think students should expect to have to do something. I mean, unless you have like a trust fund.
Yeah. Unless you're rolling in the dough.
Yeah.
I also say this, that it's not just a student issue in general. It's a starting out issue.
Oh yeah, and it can, yeah, for sure. And it's even more than that, because it's, it's not a dependable job. It's a job from, you go from project to project. You don't know what your projects are. Well, you might not know your projects for the next couple of years, but you might suddenly, have a gap where things aren't coming in. So you just have to be prepared. And if you're not relying on your books for all of your income, your life will be a lot easier. And then you can take projects that you really like instead of just taking anything and like being desperate for work.
It's really fun to be able to say no.
Yes, you want to be able to say no, because there are definitely things you probably don't want to illustrate, that wouldn't be fun for you to do. So for sure.
Hundreds of puppies crushing someone to death.
That actually sounds really fun to draw.
I remember there's two things in my career that I remember like vividly. One of them is my first rejection letter. And that was, the day where you would send off a postcard and then hope, and then all of a sudden you get a letter back from someone and you go, why do they even write it back if they said no?
Yeah.
But
exactly.
I got that. And then the other one is like the first time I got to say no, or like, I don't have time for that, or this project doesn't interest me, or like those kind of things. Like, to me, that's just as important, because it's one of them is you're being turned down, and the other one is you're doing the turning down of a gig, and it sort of markers in your career. Like, you should actually get rejected. I think it's important that people get rejected in their work, because it helps you understand, like, one, what is and isn't working in your portfolio, but also I think it's just a good character building sort of situation. And same thing as like, it's good character building to be able to sit there and say like, this isn't the right project for me. And
yeah, for sure.
Away from it. One of the things that I stress too in the classes is the idea of multi-revenue streams. So, you have other things going on besides just, like in my case, books, but I also have gallery work. I still have editorial stuff that I do. I still have, a variety of things that bring in money. On the art side, do you have stuff like day jobs are helpful?
Oh, yeah.
But do you have some art that you do? Like, are you still doing printmaking stuff?
I haven't done printmaking in a long time, because it's just too time consuming. I'll sell like prints online, like, but not printmaking prints. But yeah, other streams. No, it's really books and then day job. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like you have any creative output at your job? Like, obviously it's not maybe a art job proper, but does your creativity show up?
Yeah, I think that coming up with ideas and, being able to think a little bit outside the box can help sometimes, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
When you're creative, like, most of the time it's gonna bleed over into other things too that are not art related. So yeah, I think it can all help. Everything helps each other. But yeah, I think people shouldn't be ashamed to have to work.
Yeah. If you truly
it's
are
part
ashamed,
of life.
Yeah. If you're ashamed that you have to work or that you have to put in stuff, like, I'm more fearful for the people that don't have to.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're challenged enough in a way. And I don't mean it like, hey, you don't have a job, but more so like people who are can rest
Mm-hmm.
and have to do anything, like what forward progression is there in your artwork at that point? Or are we purely just sort of sitting back going like, well, I don't have to worry this week, so I'm just going to do the same old thing that I always do? And maybe that's, I mean, I may be a bit naive in that statement, but I see a huge value in the idea of like having to reevaluate your work and think about who you are as an artist on a frequent basis.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And you value your time more too, like when you don't have all the time in the world to work on something. It can make you a lot more organized, and you can't procrastinate as much. There's a lot of things, and just being around other people, having non-art people in your life, I think is important too. People that you wouldn't know otherwise. There's definitely a lot of benefits for sure. For sure.
So, what are your work habits?
What are
In the sense,
my work habits?
yeah, like are you someone that really hunkers down and gets a lot of work done on a regular basis? Do you have certain times of day that are better?
I work in the morning, and then I do like day job work, and then I work at night and on the weekend.
How late are we staying up working?
Oh, not as late as you, because I would maybe 10:30, 11. I used to stay up till like 2:30 in the morning every night when I was younger, but since the pandemic hit, that is like no more.
In your 80s, you gotta call that off.
Yeah, I cannot do that anymore. So 11 is probably like the average time, but yeah, I'm not a really really late at night person. Yeah. But I put in a lot of hours, but they're just spread out.
I see. Okay, here's a question from Charles Santoso. Do you know Charles Santoso's work?
Yes, I love his work.
I was gonna say, yeah, you would. He's one of those people that loves himself a good little pencil.
Yeah, yeah, he has really great pencil lines.
And not only that, but if you've ever seen the size of his work, I still don't understand why he paints or draws so small.
They're really tiny.
They're extremely tiny. But he asked a question a while back that I didn't get to, but is a good question for us to chat about for a second, which is, if imaginary, you don't do illustration, what would you do as a career?
What I do as a career?
What are the cops going to call you? Someone's going to call the cops on you and say someone's acting crazy, and you're in the middle of your job. What is that job that the cops are showing up to? I'm just going to keep going back to the idea the cops are showing up.
I don't know if the cops are showing up. I would probably be doing something with animals. When I was a kid, I really, really wanted to do something with animals, but realized I did not want to be like a vet or actually work in a zoo, but I would rather just draw animals.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe I would, I don't know, maybe I'd live on a farm and have little chickens or something. Who knows?
Is the idea of not being a vet because of like the sad part?
Oh yeah, well, science wasn't my strong suit.
Okay.
And yeah, when you're a kid, you're not thinking about, oh, I'm gonna have to like put the cats down.
Yep.
It would just be too much for me. It's not for me.
But what if it was a funny way?
It was a funny way. Somehow.
What if you had someone doing rim shots on the drum the whole time? What was I gonna say? I realized the other day that like when I was a kid, I used to say that I'd be a chef or I'd be some sort of food related thing. But then I was talking with someone the other day at work about this, and I've realized that I don't know if I have the wherewithal, same thing of like, not necessarily that it's on the pet side, but I don't know if I could go back and study this. But I love the idea of being a therapist.
Oh.
And what gets me interested is I love trying to figure out how people's brains work and like what kind of mindset they're in the situations. Like, do they not know that they're like challenging people or being abrupt in situations, and like, you know, how do you get around those kind of elements? But I just don't think I could go back and study psychology. I think that would do,
Yeah.
I would not have the wherewithal to like get in there and be like, well, this doctor says that the brain works this, like, I'm more about the gossip. Yeah.
You just want to talk. Well, that's why you do this.
Yeah, see, that's why I ask those questions. What do you think about death? Tell me about why the cops would show up. All those questions are, honestly, that's really what it boils down to, is going back to those questions of like who people are and how they think and how they sort of get through life are a lot of what these questions are about. And I hope they're, I hope they're not too challenging, but it is me trying to like get to the heart of like how people tick. And in this case, it's about like how do people tick.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not that far off. You're right.
Yeah, I could totally see you doing that. Yeah, because you kind of are.
Yeah, psychoanalyzing. Tell me about your childhood trauma. I don't ask those questions. But, my wife says, you keep calling it gossip, but you just mean analysis. I do like gossip, though, too. Let's put it that way. Like, we do you watch any trashy TV?
I don't know if it'd be trashy. I just keep rewatching The Office lately, so that's really not trashy.
Oh, that's
just,
not trashy.
Good fun.
Like, we just finished Love Is Blind, the latest season, and like that's some trashy TV.
Oh, like a reality show. Okay, I don't really watch any of those.
Yeah, and like I'm rooting for drama. And to me, that's that like gossip. Like, oh, did you hear so and so said this? Like, oh, that's so fun. But I understand that, like, yes, that's not. I want to figure out why they would say it, not just what did they say. So my wife's somewhat right. Somewhat. I'll give her a shred.
I'm sure she's right. Yeah.
Not most of the time. Shoot. What was I gonna say? Is there a job that you think? Okay, so here's a bigger question. You mentioned that, I think you mentioned at the beginning that your parents were, no, it was someone in class today. Sorry, I'm getting it mixed up. Were your parents really art friendly?
Not. They're definitely not artists at all. My mom was a school teacher. She taught math, which was actually my absolute worst subject, which was kind of funny that she was a math teacher. Though I always got decent grades because she was a math teacher, that she could explain things to me when I came home, help me study for tests.
System?
Yeah, for sure. So it definitely helped, but it wasn't my strong subject.
Okay.
I mean, they were very supportive in me doing art, but they aren't actually art-y, I guess, themselves. Yeah. But they are both huge readers, so they were, very excited about me making books.
Was there a field that they thought you were going to go into when you were little?
No, I think that what I do now actually probably makes the most sense to them. Yeah, it really probably does. I was a very nerdy person that liked to read a lot of books and draw all the time, so it just, what I'm doing actually makes complete sense. I can't think of anything that actually would make more sense for how I was as a kid.
Are they proud of you now?
I hope so.
Have you
No, I'm sure they are.
Do they have your artwork in their house?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Do they buy your books?
Some do and some don't. but some I send them to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you sign them over to them?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. I do.
Do you say nice things?
Do I say nice things
Yeah.
in the book? No.
You're not
I
like,
always
you
figure
never
they might
believed
want to
in
give
me.
it to, they might want to give it to someone else, so I don't like dedicate it to, because I
Yeah.
won't be offended if they pass it on to someone else.
My mother buys, I said this on here, my mother buys 2 of my books. One for me to sign for her to keep, and the other one for her to sign for if she ever wants to like try to sell it for value.
Really?
Like, yeah, I'm like, they're never gonna be that valuable. I don't think anybody's gonna ever collect like a first edition of one of my books and go like, oh, that was the first time you ever did this. I don't think that's gonna happen, but she always buys 2.
That's
You know,
very sweet. That's very
it's
sweet that she believes in that. Like, yeah.
not truthful to the situation at all, but yes, it is very nice that she goes.
That's incredibly sweet.
Now, she really just sees it as a money thing.
Not proud of you.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's just like, how much money can I make off my son? When's he going to buy me that mansion?
Yeah, I'm going to sell these on eBay later.
That'd be amazing if like I found out that like they were up on eBay. Like, here's a signed copy of this book. Like, anybody can get a signed copy of a book from me, but he's out there trying to hawk it to people.
The ones that say to mom. Yeah. That would
Are you a mom? Do you like silly books? Well, I got the book for you. It's like my mom doing did you watch Reading Rainbow when you were little?
Oh yeah, all the time, for sure.
The thing I just did was that, like, do you like balloons? Well, I've got a story for you.
Oh yeah.
In this story, Billy wants to get a big balloon, but he can't. And then, like, well, the more, or not the more you know. What do they always say at the end of it? Like,
oh, it is something like that. What is it now?
it's I can't think.
Completely left my brain.
There is something that they always have a tag at the end. What is it? Oh, but you don't have to take my word for it. That's what it is.
Oh yeah.
That's where my wife comes in with the hot ticket answer. That's why she pays
Very
attention.
helpful. Yeah, that's very helpful.
But yeah, just my mom. Like, if you're a mom and you like a book that's funny, boy, have I got it for you. It's signed by the author. Do you go to bookstores often?
Oh yeah, all the time. I love looking through the picture books for sure.
Are you able to read stuff besides picture books?
Oh yeah. I read a lot of novels, historical fiction. I just finished reading The Eyes and the Impossible by Dave Eggers. If you haven't read it yet, read it. It's absolutely amazing. I think it's one of my favorite books that I've read in years.
This is the new one.
Yeah,
the one with Sean Harris.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always forget the title of that one. The one that got them the
that one. It got the Newbery.
Yeah. Now I'm hoping that rubs off on the book that came out with him and I, and all of a sudden I get to see some of that Newbery royalties coming my way.
That would be
yeah,
amazing.
I don't think it's gonna happen, but yeah, that's that one is amazing. I mean, Sean Harris in general is amazing, and his writing, like, I read the book that I worked on with him, I was worried, like, it's a little bit longer than a standard picture book, and the humor in it is a little, like, wry and things of the sort. And I did a book reading for the launch and read the story to some people, and there was a clear, like, they got it. They understood the tone of his writing and why he writes that way, like, really came through. And part of it is, like, you know, you just got to read it the right way, because if you don't, it can register as, like, maybe a little bit like, what's going on here. But he is a very, very funny writer. Are there authors that you would really want to work with?
Well, I'd love to do anything with him. Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of people that I would love to work with. I'm trying to think who. Mac Barnett's writing. I really love his writing. Mm-hmm. That would be amazing. I mean, there are a ton of people. Like, of course, you know, every name leaves my mind as soon as I'm asked a question.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because there's like the world of kidlit that we can go like, oh, here's the big writers and these are the people that do amazing work. But are there people outside of the kidlit world that you think it would be fun to do a book with? Like if you're reading other books and you're reading all these, like, you know, obviously Dave Eggers is on that sort of threshold. Like his stuff is in the kidlit world and he does kidlit books, but he also does things that are for adults. Is there someone that you're like, here's a musician I love, or I'd really love Gordon Ramsay to write a book, and you know, whatever it may be.
Yeah. God, my brain is working so slow today. Just like, why can't I think of any of these answers?
Okay. This is, you didn't realize this is going to be gotcha journalism.
I know, it really is. It really is. It's like things I haven't thought of yet. I'm waiting for someone to just, you know, come to me. I'm not going out to these people. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm going to think of something as like tomorrow. I'll think of something, I'm sure.
Yeah, you don't have to have the perfect answer today. That's okay. Yeah, but you need to report in later with you don't have to have it today. It's due on Thursday, the 20th. I'm trying to think. There was someone that came into mind the other day that I was thinking like, oh, they would make a really fun. Oh, a comedian that we like, a guy named Kurt Brownholer, who's he's a very strange, weird comedian who likes to, like you mentioned, taking long walks. He and this guy, Scotty Landis, I think, run a podcast called Bananas. And they do like really strange events. They jet ski down the Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
To like raise money for goats for villages in Africa. But they, you know, made a comedy show out of the whole thing. And they do those kind of like just weird events like that. And I always think it would be fun to have one of them write a book that would be for kids, because I know they would not do something that's too standard. They would want to do something out there, and it's like that would be a fun go-to.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a really good one. Do
you have anybody in your family that is coming to you going, I have an idea for a book?
Oh, I mean, it's usually like relatives of relatives sort of thing. But yeah, I honestly don't like when that happens.
Yeah.
You know. It's usually not something that you want to do, you know?
Yeah. Are you saying that it might be bad quality?
Yeah, that just gets so awkward when people ask things like that.
It's
sure.
hard to someone that you know and love, like, this isn't good.
Yeah, you can't say that to people.
Yeah.
You can't.
You can't to people you don't know.
To people you don't know, you can, but I wouldn't say that to someone I didn't know. I just, you know, say I can't draw that book for you.
I'm busy.
Yeah.
I'm pretty go to.
Yeah, I mean, of course you get a lot of strange requests through the internet. But I feel like that happens often. You know, people I have no idea how much people are paid to make books, and I don't know what they think. Like they think they could just pay someone a couple $100 and they'll make them a book or something. But
how much do you get paid? No, I'm just. Well, you're gonna throw that out there. You better tell us. Otherwise, we're gonna.
Show me your tax return.
Yeah. Coming up, man. My wife just reminded me that we got to do that today. That I had it on the agenda to talk to them tomorrow and set up appointments and whatnot. But like,
the worst.
And especially as someone who does freelance, it's just like it can either be an amazing day or it can be a really hard day, because depending on sort of what your year looked like, and it's not always the most fun event.
Oh yeah, there will be tears sometimes for those events, for sure.
It's like, and I don't know if people know, but like the equivalent of when you sign on a book, you get an advance on royalties and you get a signing bonus. or assigning, a portion of it for the signing of the contract, and like you get this big chunk of money for not doing anything, which is lovely. But if it falls on a tax year or in a way that hits you on the taxes, like those things, even though it's nice to have money coming in, having money come in at a time wherein it's going to raise your rates for that year, or I was always told that like if you owe a lot in taxes, that means you did really well that year, which is awesome, but sometimes you don't have that extra cash lying around to be able to say, this is really awesome that I made money this year.
Yeah, you got to really learn how to save that money for taxes.
Yeah.
You learn the hard way usually the beginning that you forgot to save the money.
The book that I use with my students has a thing saying like you need to save 25 to 30%, and you need to have a separate bank account for it specifically, so you're not
so you don't use it.
Yeah, so you don't use it, and like
I would say 30% is the safest, because then if you actually get money back, it's a really nice day.
Oh, that's the best.
Yeah.
But it means that you did horrible on your job that year, but it's still the best.
Well, not if you pay your estimated taxes correctly.
Oh, you do estimated taxes though.
Oh yeah. Oh, you don't do that. I do quarterly taxes. I do them every, what is it? It's like 4 times a year. There's one in April, then there's one in June, there's one in September.
June 15th.
Yeah.
September. No, not September. Whatever. Me. I used to do that, but I got to the point where it's like I already know I'm going to owe stuff, and whether I pay it now or I pay it later, I'm not as concerned about it. And there can be some penalties if you don't meet a certain amount or you don't get it in on time. And like, I'm the type of person, I'm like, I don't really care enough to, and am consistent enough to sit there and go like, oh, that date's coming up, I got to send that in.
I find it helpful because you get rid of that money that you need to save for the taxes.
Yeah, no, that
and you end up in a better situation at the end.
Getting the windfall though, where you're like, yes, I get money back, is lovely, and then it's like all the things that you've been saving for, or you've been struggling with for the year, all of a sudden it's not a struggle anymore. That is a wonderful day. I like how we're getting into like the weeds here now.
How does everyone else do their taxes? Yeah.
Your W-99, I don't even remember.
Though actually, taxes for anyone who's freelance is like a really, really important part of it. So.
Yes. Well, that's the class I teach is a professional practice class, and right now, and it is stuff like how to do a contract and how to deal with taxes and how do you, where do you move and build a network and those kind of things. And like, that is just as valuable as learning how to draw is.
Oh yeah, I wish I had a class like that. I didn't have a class like that.
You can join my class. You want to come in, you want to hang out, I can give you a Zoom link. You can sit in and I'll tell you the whole thing.
Yeah.
Of stuff you already know.
No, I think that's like really, really important for students, because I mean, everything is so different for freelance, and a lot of people don't understand it, and you can really be in trouble if you don't know that.
Or I mean, the things that I always get is, especially with young artists, is not knowing how to deal with contracts, or starting to do work before the contract is solidified, or you just got to get stuff in writing. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to, like I say to them all the time, it can be on a napkin. It can be pretty straightforward, but you need to have something in writing so you don't get you don't have the fight later on. And it doesn't mean that everybody's going to use and abuse you over time, but it's just, you save yourself a lot of hassle if it's already been discussed and you're not having to do it in the middle of a project. Have you ever in sort of working in the industry, have you ever had anything that really sort of was a challenge to your not necessarily your finances or that side of things, but have you ever had like clients that have not paid on time, or?
Oh yeah, Yeah, for sure. The children's magazine industry, I won't name the exact names, but
Oh,
they are incredibly bad at paying people. They take like a year or
yeah.
a year after publication. Like I stopped doing
Uh-huh.
work with them because of that. But
That's
um,
one of the reasons why I don't work for them in particular. Like
yeah,
I think the ones that you're talking, there's a couple of them that are really notorious for like they pay every 6 months or they pay every year. And if you did the work at the wrong, like you might have done it right before they pay and then you get your money. But if you did it at the beginning of their pay cycle, you don't see it for a really
yeah,
long time. And
yeah, and that's just crazy. And you shouldn't have to chase after money. So yeah, I don't work for anyone like that. But when you're starting out, you do have to take those projects
yeah,
just for experience. But yeah, ideally, you don't do those projects after a while.
yes,
It's
yes.
just not worth it. I mean, major publishers, of course, always pay you on time.
Yeah.
I haven't had any issues with that. But,
Have you ever had anybody steal your work?
um, like I've found it on the internet, some places, but not anything like really horrible. Not like a company like making
Yeah.
T-shirts or something like that. Which I know happens to a lot of people, but
Yeah, I've had people that have like painted things that were way too close.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I have a person in my family, my wife, who's very good at talking to those people saying, hey, this is very referential. Uh, this seems a lot like so-and-so's work, or, that's great that you referenced Mark's work very, 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 very well, but just so you know, she's very good at doing that. I'm maybe a little more hesitant. I'm a little scared to do that. Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
that's why I have an agent, and a wife. Um, but that's about as close as I've ever gotten to having someone really steal my work. Um, and a lot of times it's just a learning experience. They don't know that it's probably a faux pas to do. Um,
Yeah, a lot of people don't know. If it's an amateur type thing, I don't really care. But like, if it was like a company or something,
yeah,
then I would be a different situation.
you get those lawyers involved.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
oh, wait a second. I just realized, should I have this mouse like playing basketball? I'm trying to figure out nah. Okay, never mind.
It
I'm trying to figure out
does
how.
look like a basketball. Yeah.
Well, it's the running aspect, but I don't have to draw. I don't want to have to like indicate in the rest of it that it's bouncing. So I think I'm going to go back to a little just
Very.
holding, running.
Yeah.
Yeah, carrying a couple of them here in the hands.
It's very,
And so,
very cute.
this is not what I knew I was going to be painting tonight, but it's Pi Day related at least.
Yeah, yeah.
It has pie involved.
You
The
have like a full scene, which is nice. Mine is very random, like telephone doodle.
yeah, like, oh, you know what you should do? Because you said that, you should have them all have little like cups and strings attached, so it's the whole world is like talking through the like cup and string thing, and then it can be telephone related. How do you come up with your ideas?
How do I come up with ideas for drawings or for books? Or I think I just start doodling,
Well, let's say for like the book ideas, where I mean, you mentioned the FERN OTTO one, but like FERN OTTO, is that right?
FERN OTTO.
FERN OTTO. I was like,
Fern,
that doesn't sound right.
Girl bear. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. FERN OTTO. FERN OTTO also has the same thing where it sounds like it's like a some sort of weird like Italian dessert. One of those FERN OTTOs and a anyways, how do you did you just laugh at that, Lauren? I hope she was laughing at my joke and not my she's laughing at something else. Lame. Is there like a process that you go through? Are you someone that writes down and jots down ideas? Does it literally come from the doodles and you're like one of those people that makes the drawing first?
It's definitely a combination of both. You know, I will jot down ideas in a sketchbook and stuff and keep notebooks going of ideas. But a lot of it just comes from just like randomly drawing, and like a story might come out of a drawing sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or if there's characters you draw a lot, you come up with a backstory for them and those become a book. It's really every book I've done has been completely different process. So I feel like you just never know where a book idea is going to come from.
Is there
They've all been very different. Yeah.
is there a process of how you know if it's a good idea?
Well, I mean, you have to be excited about it for sure,
Okay.
but also it has to work as a picture book. And there can be a lot of ideas that just don't work out, or you can't, they have to it has to have a satisfying ending and things like that. So it can be complicated to get ideas to work as a book. And that takes a while because you got to really put a dummy together in order, with rough sketches, of course, but to see if something's working, it's a slow process. But I feel like right away if it's not, like if you're not excited about it, it's probably not working.
It's the equivalent of I just wrote something a couple weeks back that I may be the most excited about of all the things that I've written.
Oh, nice.
And it happened in a matter of 3 hours.
Wow, nice.
Done in 3 hours. So like that tells me a little something too, that the first book that I wrote that got some recognition was a book that came out in a matter of a few days. And I didn't struggle over it. And I think that's when I really that's when it gets hard for me, is when I'm sitting there like having to hem and haw over like, is this the right word choice? Is this exactly what I'm going to be doing? And is this the right book? And it all keeps coming back to those kind of questions. But I feel like just sort of like, no, this is the book. This is straightforward. There's no question about it. This is like what it needs to be. And it's a matter of, I'm wordsmithing now, like minutely of, this is a funnier word, but not necessarily that like, is this the right sentence altogether?
Oh, that's great. So, then you definitely have found the right book.
Yeah. Well,
if it's coming easy like that, then it's the right project. Yeah.
We'll see what the agent says. That's the big kicker.
Of course.
And like, does the market need this book? I hope it does, because I'm having fun with it so far. And everybody that I've read it to has chuckled quite heartily, as adults even. So that, to me, that's a sign that there's something there, that it's not just it's not just a dumb humor thing for little kids. And not to say that little kids only like dumb humor, but it's not juvenile in its humor take. It is meant to like be funny wordplay and whatnot. So
we need more fun books. Kids need more fun books. So I hope there's room for it in the market for sure.
I forget who I was. Oh, we were talking in a crit group one time about that, of like that libraries. There was a guy that I was talking to that was saying that in the library that he was at, the librarian, like a school library, the teacher was saying that they're really struggling because they all the books that are winning awards, and it's not to say they're bad books, but are not the books that the kids want to check out.
Yeah.
So they have it like, here's the award winners this year, and they just don't get the same rotation through the library.
Well, a lot of them are really sad.
Yeah. And it's okay to have those books. I'm not downplaying that. Yeah. But there needs to be a balance for kids, so they're not only getting the woe is me stories, and they get some stuff that it really hits at like what is funny to a kid, but you still need those beautiful books, and you still need the for people to see that there is this variety of things out there. Are there books that you're like right now you're in love with that are not yours?
Yeah.
Of course.
Now I'm gonna look at my shelf. Yeah. Actually, this one. put it down. It'll take like 5 minutes for it to show up. But Who Will Make the Snow?
Okay.
It's a Ukrainian book.
Oh.
It's actually a little bit sad, but it's really, really charming.
It looks. I love the like. Is it stippling?
It looks like it's like pen, but it's this little mole family. It's interesting because it's really long text for a picture book.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just goes through the year of this mole family. And they do have some sad things happen, but some of it's just about like what they eat and stuff. But I'm dropping things. But it's very unusual.
Yeah, that is a lot of text for a picture book.
Yeah, it is a lot of text. But I think it's a really interesting read.
Is it?
And the artwork.
Is it a book for you or is it a book for kids?
I think it could be for both. Like, I would have liked it as a kid.
Yeah. I mean, you understand the sentiment of like, there's certain books that, like, there's picture books that I get because I think they're great for kids, and there's picture books I get because they're really for me.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if there's not a kid in my life that I would necessarily give that book to right now, but I would have liked it as a kid. So I'm sure there are kids that would like it. But yeah, I know what you mean. I do think we need more picture books that are for kids and not for adults, because lately there are kind of, I don't know, too many that seem like they're written for adults. I'm not going to name names, but we need to remember that we're making books for kids.
I mean, some of us are making books that are meant to be hard-hitting journalism that talks about war. Shoot, where did I just put that? There we go. Are there books that you want to get your hands on that you just haven't had a chance to get to yet?
I feel like I always have a list. Yeah.
Besides my books.
Oh, of course your books. Yeah, of course. Let's see. I'm trying to think what new books are out recently. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
That I don't have right now. Yeah. Because I do buy a lot of picture books, so it's.
Are you a library person?
Both. I do end up buying a lot. Like it.
Yeah.
I should probably spend less money on picture books.
How big's the collection right now?
There's probably like 400 books or something like that.
Oh yeah, you're in good shape there. Okay. And do you have kids? You don't have kids, right?
No, I don't.
Yeah, that's real. You're entering creep territory. Almost.
Maybe that's the thing I'd be in trouble for, having too many picture books.
Someone's driving around with a van and some picture books in Brooklyn. Yeah, I have I don't know how, I would have to do some math. I should do some math at some point. I know that like I bought a lot of CDs when I was younger, and I was very proud of that. But now it's a picture book collection. But I feel like we go through spurts. We're at the point, and I imagine you're the same thing. You walk into a bookstore and you walk out with like 3 books.
Yeah.
And you don't have that attention. You're not looking for something specific, but just like it's just hard to walk away without having something in your hand. Are there artists in particular that you have a lot in your collection, like from that specific artist?
Yeah, I have. Now I have to look at my bookcase. I have a lot of Marianne Dubach. Do you know her?
The name sounds vaguely familiar. I'd have to see.
She did The Lion and the Bird. That book.
Yeah, I'd have to look. It's hard to pinpoint.
Yeah, I have a ton by her. You know, like Matthew Forsythe, John Clausen, of course. I mean, yeah, all the
Have you?
games.
Oh, I know the one. Yeah, now that you have that one sitting there, yes, I know that one very well.
Yeah, I really like her work.
Have you read John Clausen's the Rock That Fell from the Sky, or no, the Rock the?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great one.
That book, I swear, like there's a couple of books that I've read recently, and that is one that is a, like, in my opinion, is a teacher's dream when it comes to pacing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, the pacing is really good.
The like build up of like just you know what's coming, and he just holds you off, and like he builds these little moments. You're like, oh, this is like foreshadowing, and it's a very, very fun book to read to people. I used it with students who I was just talking about pacing and like storyboarding and how to tell a story, not just picture book. And that one was like, that was primo. I don't use that word often, but I'm going to use it here. It was primo.
Nice. Yeah, that is a good one.
What about when you were growing up? What was your favorite?
Oh, I was really, really into like Arnold Lobel, Frog and Toad.
Okay.
And like Richard Scarry, like the Busy Town books.
Wait, is it Scarry or is it Richard Scarry?
Is it scary? I always say it wrong. I always think it's one or the other. It's whatever you say it is, because I always say it wrong. Let's see. Beverly Cleary, like the Ramona series. I was really into those. Lane Smith, I think like his Stinky Cheese Man book was one of the first books I saw as like when I was a little bit older, that it's like, wow, picture books can be really cool.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think my little brother had it, and I was probably a teenager, and that reading that book really made me want to go into picture books, because that book already seemed a little bit different from some of the ones we had as kids.
Well, yeah, it was changing the, like, he also, I can't remember what it was, the one about the three little pigs.
The True Story of the Big Bad Wolf.
Yeah. That one where like you're just so used to hearing that, and then
True Story of the Three Little Pigs.
Flips the script on its head is such a good like example of, at that time, I feel like it was really super challenging and inventive, and maybe it still is in a way, but not in, like, there's more books out there like that now that are sort of messing with the idea of the story in some sort of format.
Yeah, those were some of the first ones that were kind of breaking the traditions.
Yeah.
So yeah, they made picture books seem more exciting. But, yeah.
Is there a publisher that you would love to work with?
I've worked with most of them. Let's see. I've worked with Penguin. I've worked with Random House. I've worked with Candlewick, Simon and Schuster. Right now, I'm working on a project with Tundra. So I was very excited to work with Tundra. So that has been really nice. I haven't worked with Chronicle, so I guess I could add that Chronicle to my list of ones. But yeah, do you have a favorite publisher that you'd want to work with that you haven't worked with yet?
Chronicle is up there. Flying Eye Press. Flying Eye Press.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, they make really cool stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I all the big ones are great. Like, if I could ever work with a big one, great. I'm absolutely fine with that. But I feel like I love Flying Eye Press. I love what is it? Lion.
Enchanted Lion.
Enchanted Lion. I love their books. I think that some of the ones I would love to work with, the content that I generally draw may not be up their alley because they're a little bit more artsy fartsy.
Yeah.
And I play a much more sort of poppy world in some sense. And so I don't know if it's if there's a perfect connection that's there, but I would love to work with some of those clientele just because I think their books are so great.
Yeah, for
but,
sure.
you know, am I the right fit? Who knows? That's a question they have to ask, not me. But if they came knocking on my door, I would definitely like jump at the chance. I'm trying to think if there's other ones that are out there that I'm like, this is the one. It's more, honestly, it's not about the publisher to me as much as it is like how much flexibility or how wild can I get with the project. So what I don't want to do is I've realized that I don't want to like long term, I don't want to be making the same type of book that I've done in the past. I want to do I want to play a little bit more. And if a publisher is going to allow me to play and it's a smaller publisher, that's fine. Just as much as a big publisher is. I'd rather, not that I want to take a pay cut of any sort, but I'd rather have a book that I have flexibility at this point.
That makes a lot of sense, for sure. Yeah. Having freedom in the project is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not to say that the publishers that I've worked with don't allow that freedom, but I'm looking for maybe even more like how wild can I, and I don't know if some of the smaller publishers I've worked with have that freedom because of their limited runs or their, the demand that they have to meet based on the bottom line for the year. And places like Chronicle potentially have a little bit more money to play with to be able to do some fun things. So we'll get there someday. We'll find the right fit that is like, and I love the publishers I've worked with, don't get me wrong in that sense, but it's, I do know there are some that I would love to work with even more so just because they'd be wild and different.
For sure. I mean, it's always good to try new places and, see how other people work.
Yeah.
Not limit yourself. It's always good.
I want to point out, remember how I said at the beginning that you could leave whenever you wanted? And you said you got 2 hours. Do you know what?
Oh, wow. I actually probably should leave.
No. Whoops.
I like to leave soon.
Whoops. No, that's a bad mistake on my part.
You made a mistake. I didn't notice what time it was.
Yeah. Your clock's wrong. Your clock's wrong. But one of those things where like I hope that like I know we start off on silly and we have some crazy questions, but I hope that like especially for people that join this because I have a lot of people. I don't remember you saying this of any sort, but I have a lot of people that say like, oh, I'm too shy and I'm really nervous about it. And like it really is just like let's sit down and talk. And at a certain point, you kind of forget the crowd that's watching.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah,
and I definitely got questions I wasn't expecting. So I'm gonna have to have to do some deep like thinking about my thoughts on weird death.
I don't know why that came. That is one of the weirder ones. Like sometimes it's just like hey, what's your type of sock or something like that. But like to ask you like how do you want to die is one of the more ones that I've given. If you ever figure out what it is that this is the way that you want to go, you let me know.
Yeah, I will let you know.
I will make sure we'll figure out ways to help in the process. It's getting even darker now. I need to stop. The joke is running course. So anyways, if you go, I do not want to stop you. I want you to go and have a lovely evening, or although it may be from the sound of it, you may just go fall asleep.
Probably. Yeah. It's already pretty late.
Wait, you have work in the morning?
Yeah, I work in the.
Oh. What time do you have to get up? Uh-oh, our sound dropped. I asked too many hard-hitting questions. I'm done it now.
But this has been so fun. Thank you so much for having me on.
Like I said, it was breaking up, and I couldn't hear anything you said, and then it just cut back in. I was like, this has been so fun.
Did I break? Oh, I went away. Okay.
Yeah,
I was just saying this has been very fun.
Okay,
Thank
good.
You. Okay, now I'm gonna go. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Hold on, everybody. We're seeing if Stephanie actually leaves. Oh, yeah. Now we're in the clear. Now we're in the clear. Now we can really talk about death. Okay. So, how, what's a fun topic we can do now? Let's see. I forget what we talked about last time. Oh, we talked about some cereals and stuff. Let's talk about, what's something that would be, what? She's still on? Oh, yeah. There you go. She's still watching, but now that Stephanie's gone, we can get into the real dirt here. I'm trying to think if there was I feel like there was something I was gonna ask this time that was like hey, what do you think about this? Okay. Favorite video game from your youth? Or no, I'm not gonna say video game. Favorite game. Let's go there. Let's open it up a little broader so people can get a little wild with it. I want people rolling in with the most wild thing you can think of. What's that game that you loved? Were you a video game person? Did you like video games? Were you a board game person? Is there a board game you loved? You know what game I loved? And this is gonna sound weird. I loved a game that my parents had purely because of the name of it. We had a game called Booby Trap, and it was literally just like these little discs and this like spring-loaded thing, and you had to take them out and not have the thing snap. But I just thought it was the funniest thing that was called Booby Trap. Let's see. Lauren's got Mario, Gauntlet, Marble Madness, Super Mario 2. There was a game that was on the original NES that I used to love. Well, there were two of them. One was Krasnov. Krasnov? No, that's the name of a doctor that we have. Karnov. There you go. That was like this cool, like Russian guy, like old Russian guy, and he used big Karnov. 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 Anyways, and the other one that I loved, and this one's like probably not the most wonderful game. I liked it. It was so dumb. It was a game called Caveman Games that was on the NES. If anybody ever played Caveman Games, they had games in there. So it was like the Olympics, but for cavemen. And so one of them was like you had to pole vault over T-Rex, and if you missed, he would eat you. And then there was another one that was a fire starting match, and what you would do is you would wait, Charles Santosa, which game are we? Oh, Karnov, yeah. The fire starting one, you had to like push the buttons to try to start your fire, but you were next to another person and you could try to blow out their fire and prevent them from getting anywhere. But when you did that, you had to stop making your own fire, and so it was a risk of like, do you blow out this other person's fire and prevent them from getting a good fire going, or do you continue to make your fire and hope they don't blow out yours? But they did have a horrible game in there, which was you would take a cave lady and hold her by the hair and use her like she was a hammer throw, and you would throw her. And I'm saying right now, not a good role model of a game when they have something like that in it. But I used to think that game was so funny because of the like how silly it was that you would like do these just weird games, and they were sort of Olympic games, and they weren't good. Like, it wasn't a good game, but it was there. Anyways, let's see. Has many names, but we call it Skelly. We flip bottle caps with candle or crayon wax. You flick them across a board we drill in the street. What? I gotta look that one. Oh, you know what's a good game? You know what's an amazing game? Foursquare. I used to love Foursquare. And Foursquare to the way. Foursquare, we're in, like, we had all these rules where, like, there was no treetops, no shoe shines, no, I forget what all the different ones were. There was, like, all these different things that you can't do because it's cheating. And they were all super, like, hyper specific. Like, I know what treetops were. That's where you bounced it and it went over the person's head so they couldn't actually get it. And shoe shines is where you aimed it directly at their feet, and so they couldn't get that. But there were other ones I don't remember, but Foursquare was fun. Wait, they mentioned that in The World Belonged to Us, and the bottle caps are filled from the road. I've never heard of Skelly. I mean, I've heard of Skelly because we have someone at our work that their last name is Skelly, and maybe that's how they got it. Maybe they're really a world famous Skelly player, and it's like those things where, like, if it's your last name kind of thing, that's how the name came to be. I'll have to ask Mrs. Skelly if that's I'm not giving their first name. See if they've heard of it. I've never heard of it. So, anyways, probably not real because I haven't heard of it. I don't know why you think you can get one by me, but that's totally fake. What other? I'm trying to think if there's other, like, weird games. We used to have this game that I played when I was freeze tag's a good one. Flashlight tag, TV tag. What's TV tag? Or tag? Is that better? Tag. Explain to me what that is. Oh, you just had to name TV shows? But why is... Oh, like, if you got tagged, you had to name one? Okay. That's like now in elementary school or some, like, all that gym class is like variations on the game tag. If you get touched with this, you have to swim around like a fish for 3 minutes, and now it's called sardines. It's those kind of weird odds and ends. One of the games that we made up, though, was we had a slanted roof, and we would be in the driveway, and you would throw a ball up onto the roof, and it would bounce back out, and you'd be on the driveway, and you had to catch it and throw it again, but you could not be touching the ground when you did that. So you have to jump in midair, grab it, and throw it, and get it back up on the roof. And the first person to be touching the ground with the ball or can't catch the ball would lose. But the way that it was played was not just like, hey, did you catch it or not, those kind of things, but like the angle at which you threw it at the roof would make it bounce off in different directions. Like, if it came down from a higher angle, more than likely that ball is going to shoot out further. If it came at a lower angle, it would bounce up. And so, like, you had to really control where you wanted the ball to go, but you also had to do it all midair. So you had less control potentially in the process, and it was a fun game. I don't know if it's called anything. I think we just sort of did it because we had a roof that allowed that to happen. But that being said, I feel like this needs another cherry here. It needs like one more. I don't like that hand that's there, basically. But it needs to come out further for that to work. Sorry, I'm talking to myself. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Are there other games that people played that were like your go-tos? What about board games? My family had Payday, and I loved that game. I don't know if a lot of people played that one, but I love that game, Payday. I think it was Milton Bradley. I could be wrong. I mean, Monopoly is a good one. Oh, King's Quest is a good one. I was going to say board game, but it's not really a board game. Tubaruba. I don't know if people play Tubaruba. It was a series of tubes that you'd wrap around yourself. And then you had a certain amount of time to get one marble from one end of the tube to the other end of the tube. And it was a really dumb game. But I used to love that game. Pictionary is a good one. How come no one's saying Leisure Suit Larry? How come no one's really into that one? Well, because it was super chauvinistic and gross. That's weird. I'm trying to think of other, like, Duke Nukem, the original. There was Cosmic Kid, or no, it wasn't Cosmic Kid. What was it? Kid Cosmos or something. There were so many games that I loved that were on, was it 5" and a quarter floppy disks, or those big floppy disks that we got, that I used to absolutely love. Jones in the Fast Lane? What's Jones in the Fast Lane? Jones in the Fast Lane. Did it have that song? Jones in the Fast Lane. Doodle 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 doodle. Jones in the Fast Lane. Blaster Master. Yes. Yes. I used to love Blaster Master. And it was really confusing. Wait, there was the summer games and winter games on the Apple. Yeah, TUI. Blaster Master, I used to get confused because at the time, Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome had come out, and there was a guy in that named Master Blaster. And someone, you'd always go like, oh, I want to go play Blaster Master. And someone would be like, no, you mean Master Blaster. And then you'd punch that person in the face, and they would cry, cry, cry. But I used to love that game. Let's see. Memory game, Oregon Trail. Oregon Trail is a good one. Turtle. Anybody love Turtle? I don't know if it was a game. I mean, it kind of was a game. Sort of. I feel like Turtle was a game, though. I feel like there were, like, challenges that you were supposed to do. Like, can you get it to do this thing? But maybe I'm thinking of something else. For anybody that doesn't know, Turtle was a math equation thing. You type in an equation, and then this little triangle would go on your screen and go boop, 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 and move around. But I feel like there was some challenge to it. I don't know. Candyland. I said that really like sour. Candyland. Ugh. Who needs that one? No one needs Candyland. What a boring choice. Candyland. Oh, yuck. Candyland. Who cares about that one? Why am I like talking like that? Find your match. You know what game I also really loved? this tells you, for any of those kids out there watching who go like, video games today are the coolest. Oh yeah, wait until you hear this one. It was called Baseball, and it wasn't the game Baseball. It was the NES game called Baseball, because that's the whole name of the game. It's just baseball. Or Duck Hunt. Okay, here's a radical question. Duck Hunt or Hogan's Alley? Was it Hogan's Alley? No, Hogan's Alley was a TV show. What was it called then? Duck Hunt and something Alley, right? Someone help me out here. when you got Duck Hunt, oftentimes it came with Duck Hunt, or you could also play a game that was like you shoot criminals, or skeet shoot. I don't know that one. The Duck Hunt would have that, and then the other option was this game that I used to love that was even better than Duck Hunt, where it had these little tin cans, which I'm drawing. Tin cans. Hogan's Alley, what? Yeah, so it was a game. Hogan's Alley. But it had tin cans, and you would shoot the tin can, and it would come spinning on the screen. Every time you shot it, it would shoot up in the air. It would spin up in the air a little higher. And your goal was to get them to land on these little platforms. And so it wasn't just shooting, but it was like shooting at the right time, so it would go the direction you wanted. Hogan's Heroes was the show. Thank you. Thank you. So it wasn't that. I got it. I was so smart, everybody. You don't even know. I'm trying to think if there's. I'm trying to keep up with them. I know. Well, I'm trying to like. My wife's yelling at me. Shh, everybody, hold on. She's getting on my case. So like, I'm reading stuff that they come up. Candyland. Well, I'm getting excited too. It's okay. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I don't. I'll try better. Don't give up on me. I'm gonna what's it called? Love is Blind this and say like, are you even in this anymore? You know? Like maybe. I don't know. You crossed the line with me. Yeah. You don't yell down from upstairs about how I'm the worst person ever. Now I'm being a Chelsea. I tried, everybody. I tried. She ruined it. She ruined it, everybody. I was having a good time. No. What's the point, you know? Why do I even try anymore, you know? This is our last Gavin Doodle. We had a good run. Yeah, they're not gonna know what we're talking about. For those that are watching it who didn't see what was on the screen, she called me bad names. She talked about things that were really a deep secret that no one should know about in my life that I wanted to keep a secret. My deepest, darkest, I can't even say it. Deepest, darkest secret. She went and she told America and like. Yeah. I've never had my wife on, huh? Well, you've been on, but not like as the guest. Oh, you don't want to be? Dodge that bullet, everybody. Don't let her know. Just, I was gonna make a joke about you just being like constantly like, why are you drawing that? That's not very good. Just trashing what we're doing the whole time. This is boring. You should have better questions. So everybody knows I love my wife. I do. I mean, not as much when she's complaining about what I'm doing. But I just can't help but make the joke. I should not ever do someone's eulogy. My wife says she's defending the viewers. Even that, like, I just cut it down. My wife's trying to defend you all, and I'm trying to backstab you. And I'm just tired, people. You know, it's been a long week. It's always a long week with me. I don't think I've ever not had a long week. They're always so long. 7 days. Can you believe it? It's the worst. One of these days, these weeks are going to be like 6 days. And I'm going to relish in it. That's the only kind of relish I like. I'll say that much. It's the only kind of relish that I like. I like that relish that you put on hot dogs. That stuff's disgusting. Leap day. What about leap day? I'm just like saying random thing. What about leap day? Oh yeah, okay. Oh, I know. I lost track of the thread. Yes, that's a day where you get an extra day in the year, but it doesn't make a 6 day a week. There was a time when I was younger, and I'm not saying I was real young. This is one of those like things where you say, okay, here's the question for everybody. Here's the question. I'll lead off with mine because it's my show, baby. What's something dumb that you said where you're like, oh, that was a really dumb statement? There was one time where I was in college and I leaned over to all my friends and I said, one of these days Halloween's going to fall on Friday the 13th. And I look like a real dummy. Put in the comments that one thing that you said that you're like, oh man, I never should have said that because it makes me look like a real dum-dum. I don't remember what yours is. I know once you say it, I'll remember it, but. Oh, yeah. Put it in there, Lauren. Don't cheat. Don't cheat the people. I'll read it. But you got to put it in there for those that are here. They're wanting the dirt. No one's willing to say what they said that was really dumb. Just my wife and I. So my wife said, why do they call it committing Harry Carey? What did he do? September Studio says, I mixed up the meaning of Christmas and Easter once. I know the difference, but speaking is hard. Merry Easter. Happy Christmas. That one I don't think is that bad. I'm going to give you a pass on that one, September Studio. I'm trying to think of other, like, we had, here's a good one that's not us, but a friend of ours. We were walking down a street, and we were talking about different meats. You know who this is? And we're in our, I'm going to guess in our 30s. And this friend goes, we were talking about like chicken and beef and stuff. And he goes, where does ham come from? And I think it was, we were talking about like a chicken is called chicken and beef is called, you know, or meat is called beef and stuff. And he didn't know, he was 30 something years old and he didn't know where ham came from. And so he's no longer our friend. We gave up on him. We pushed him in the road and said, good luck. I want to hear more dumb stories of what people have said. Oh, yes. We had a person in our family who is no longer in the family. Let's put it that way. Who my mom said that she had a bunch of dried basil that she had collected over the summer, and this person said, "Oh, cool. How do you grow dried basil?" And what was there was something about Bugs Bunny or something. I don't remember what that one was that she said, but there was also another one where we were playing the game Taboo. And if anybody doesn't know how Taboo works, the name of the game there is you got to get people to say words, or no, was it Taboo? It was categories, where the name of the game was you had a letter and you had to put in, like, it'd be a bunch of questions, like 7 or 8 questions, something like that. And it would be like, name a food, name an animal, blah, blah, blah. And you'd pick a letter, and then you had to, you know, name a food that started with that letter and name an animal that started with that letter. And I'm trying to remember what it was. It was something about, oh, it was a food that's cold. And the letter was what? F. And she said Franks, meaning like hot dogs. And then we got into a big argument about that Franks are not cold, they're hot. And she said, but they're in the refrigerator. And then, but anything you put in the refrigerator is going to be cold. So, like, we sat there and we had this big argument about that. And there was another thing about a sandwich. Oh, yeah, a throw fish, and then something about a sandwich that was like a fish sandwich. Or no, it wasn't a fish sandwich. It was a ranch sandwich. And we got into an argument over, yeah, a type of sandwich. And she said a ranch sandwich. And we were talking about what is a ranch sandwich. And she started to argue that a ranch sandwich is a sandwich that has ranch on it, like ranch dressing. And then I started talking about, well, you don't call a sandwich that has lettuce on it a lettuce sandwich. Like, it's not named after the condiment. You don't go like, oh, this sandwich is called a mayo sandwich. What's on it? Well, it's got roast beef, it's got tomatoes, it's got this, it's got a little smear of mayonnaise. So we call it a mayonnaise sandwich. No. She's not in the family anymore. Oh, throwfish. Yeah, there was one that was the letter T and a fish, and she put down throwfish. And we were like, what is a throwfish? And she said, you know that thing where, like, they throw those fish in that market? And we're like, that's just a fish that they're throwing. That's not a throwfish. There's not a thing called a throwfish. This person didn't quite catch on to a lot of things. But boy, my wife and I laughed a lot that night about some of those answers. What's something dumb that you said one time? Put it on blast. We'll talk about it. I'm trying to think of other dumb things that I've said. I think there's only one that I've ever said, one dumb thing, so definitely not more than that. Come on, folks, what you got? I empathize with that person. You can't, September Studios, you can't empathize with a person who said, how do you grow dried basil? You can't. That person was a dummy. Now, I guess you can empathize them with the sense of, like, people make mistakes. mistakes, but you can't give them a pass. Let's put it that way. Mild Doodles. Plains categories. My grandma claimed that a villain that started with T was Taco Spill. We still all represent while eating tacos. Taco Spill. That's a pretty awesome villain, actually. Like, I like tacos enough that if someone spilled some tacos, yeah, they might be a villain at that point. Might have to arrest them. How dare you spill tacos? My dad is also very bad at, I'm just calling people out. My dad's really bad at spelling. And so when we play games like the dictionary game or Balderdash or games that require spelling, he does some serious like tightrope walking of trying to make his argument about why his clues and his guesses should work. He gets shot down hard in my family because we are the type that we cut no corners when it comes to playing games. Especially in something like Scrabble. You don't want to play Scrabble with my family. We all like word games. I remember being one time when my brother was younger, we were playing Scrabble, and I went from like triple word score with a like double or triple letter score or whatnot, and I got the word zygote, Zygote, and my brother and my mom were like, "That's not a real word." And then I ended up getting hundreds of points from that stupid thing, and I was laughing so hard because they didn't. I was in like science class at the time, and like I knew what a zygote was, and so I got them good on that one. But yeah, we'll cut you down if you are bad at Scrabble. My wife won't even. I don't think Lauren will play Scrabble with the family. It's too detrimental. She'll walk away crying. Or what was the one that my dad did when we were playing the dominoes game? Oh, I know what it was. Charlie, our son, thought this was so funny. There's a game called Mexican Train Dominoes. At least that's the way that's packaged. It may be just train dominoes, but that's the package that we have says that. So I always worry about like the name of it. So bear with me. I didn't name it. It's on the packaging. But the idea is like, it's like dominoes. You play dominoes and you can build these trains or like different tracks of different dominoes. And my dad had put down a 6-6, it's 6 on both sides. And then we're like, it's actually supposed to be an 8-8. And he looked at it and he goes, "Oh, sorry." And so he took the domino back so he could put down a different one and figure out a different move, and immediately put the 6-6 back down in the same spot. And my son thought it was the funniest thing that like he totally missed. He was like, "I'm going to correct this. I'm going to do this right this time." And he just did the exact same mistake. And boy, did we laugh and laugh. You had to be there. That's the story. That's what that relates to. What other fun things? I'm getting close to being done with this. I'm sort of like working final little details in this. I'm not super far from being done, but I'm trying to think what other fun things we can talk about. What? Yeah, no one else says stuff dumb. It's just us, Lauren. No one wants to admit. Everybody watching's perfect. They never make mistakes. Just dumb old us. Yeah. Takes a big person to admit their mistakes. Takes all types or something. I'm trying to think if there's like beyond just something you said that was dumb, like what's a really dumb thing you've done? Like, have you ever walked into a glass door? Have you ever Like those kind of like actions that are dumb. Have you ever gotten in the wrong car in a parking lot? I'm trying to think if I have any that are like an action type thing where I was like, oops, that wasn't smart of me. Should this say pie filling here? Or should I just leave it like, oh, it's just cherries and everybody understands it as such? Adding some like cherry goo. Cherry goo. I mean, I can put a real label on it so it actually just says like pie filling. People vote. Who's here? Who feels like they want to have a say in this image? What I need to know is, should I put something? These are just cherries, can of cherries that they're using for making a cherry pie. And should I have something in here that actually says on this can, like pie filling? Should I do something that's maybe like, I'm trying to think like even like a window or something that's up here, or something that indicates like, here's other cans? Or should there be something else in this piece that kind of hints at the idea of what's there? I'm looking for your advice, people. This is not me just rambling off to the void. Just zoom in on what? Yeah, I will in a little bit once I figure out something. I gave even a label with a little slice of pie on it. That could be done. Someone says leave it open to interpretation. Someone says pie filling on the can. I mean, if I put something on here, I feel like it needs to be a label. A label. Like I could go across it with something that just like, let's see. Excuse me. I'm just kidding. That was my dog. That wasn't me. I don't make noises like that. Don't judge me. Let's see. What if I did this? What? Yeah. Can I pet that dog? Can I pet that dog? Cherry picture on the can. Let's see. I'm just trying to like cut this down so it's relatively the right distance here. Whoop. Whoop. So if I were to put something like this on here, but then it could look like a little label that goes around that just says pie filling. Pie filling. What is that there? That's some pie filling. But what kind of pie filling? The best kind of pie filling. Where are we time-wise? 11:43. I gotta get this done quick. I gotta get this done quick. Gotta get this done quick. Gotta get this done quick. Quick. I gotta get this done quick. I hear that a lot. Oh, my wife said that you may not have heard what she said. She says that I'm really handsome. And then I said, I hear that a lot. She said I sounded like Homer Simpson with the noise that I made there. With my gotta get some pie filling. I don't know why that sounded like Homer Simpson to her, but it did. She's hard of hearing. That's probably what it is. Let's paint these in. Let's get these a little brighter. What happened to the guest? Scared him off. Scared him off. September studio. On these nights like this, oftentimes I go the whole length, 4 hours ish. But guests come on and they go, you know what? I can't keep up with this awesomeness that's happening here. It's too much for my little brain, and then they have to depart. No, it's people have other things they got to do, and so they don't stay on the whole time. I wish they did, but you know, everybody's got their priorities, and that's okay, baby. So we just Stephanie tonight said they could only go 2 hours. They ended up going for 3 hours, and then I made the mistake of pointing out the time, and then they said I gotta go. But you know, sometimes the power of and the majesty of me talking to them for that long, it's just too taxing, and they gotta step out for a minute and really like take a breath. I get it. I hope everybody knows that I'm joking with the ego thing. I'm not really a jerk in real life. Now the stuff about my wife, 100% true, all of it. But the stuff about me, fake. Let's see. Let's get this in here in the spot that I had. How's that not like line up distance wise now? Like it's off on that edge. Oh, for whatever reason. I will adjust it. I will get it. So it's a lovely little can. A can of what? A can of cherries. A can of what? A can of cherries. Is it funny that the word or the words a can of peas is like canopy? Not like pee of like pee, but just like a can of peas. Like, oh, what's for dinner? Well, I'm going to use a can of peas. So you could say, what's for dinner? A can of pea. And then it's late in the night. I'm sorry. Sometimes we get late in the night. Sometimes the brain starts to shut down. This is one of those moments. What's so funny? I realized what I was saying and that I'm an idiot. My wife says, thank God there's a question. September studio comes to the rescue. Do you have any advice for making strong graphic shapes? I love the shapes of your mice there. That's a good question. That's a good question. Let me see if I can find a way to answer it that's effective. I think so. I don't know. It's like there's a perfect shape for anything, and I mean, we were having the conversation the other day in a meeting with folks about color theory, and I know this is going to sound a little weird that I'm bringing this up when you're asking about shapes, but the idea that, like, you know, we have the color wheel and things. I don't actually believe in the color wheel. I think it's a false idea based on the way that color actually works and the way that light and things work. And so we had this conversation about, like, what actually works for color, and do you follow the rules in books or do you come up with your own idea? And I think that my idea for color is very similar to the way that I work with shape, in the sense of it's about proportion. It's less about is it the right shape and more about does it fit with everything else. So it's hard to say, like, oh, here's the shape that I would use for a mouse in a situation like this without putting it in context with everything else that's on that piece. And so, like, you know, does this mouse shape work? Do these shapes work that I'm using? Hopefully they do. But would they work on their own if it wasn't in the context of what we're looking at here? That's a bigger question. And so I don't know as I could sit there and say immediately, like, if I were to take this mouse and put them on a blank white sheet of paper, would it look the same? I don't think effectively it would look the same. It would look similar. It might be close, but I don't think it's going to look the same. And so that's where I think, like, same thing with the color argument of, like, is it fair or does it make sense to sort of lump it together and say, like, is there a perfect shape for anything? I don't think there is. I think there's a perfect shape for, or I shouldn't say a perfect shape. I don't think there is a perfect shape for designing a character. I think there is a shape that makes sense when put in context with things. So a lot of times there are shapes that I enjoy. So I enjoy an arch, or something that's sort of like a half sphere, or something that's egg-like. I really love ovals that lean to the right, and ovals that are irregular, so they're not like a perfect oval, but something that's got a little wobble to it, and so it's not exactly, correct, and something that leans to the right. That is a shape that I love, and it shows up in a lot of the work, and I acknowledge that it shows up in a lot of the work. But there's times where, like I originally had different legs on this, and I didn't like the legs. I thought they were too skinny and long, and I like the idea of, like, messing with the proportion. And so, like, for me, it wasn't about, like, were they the right size. These arms are huge compared to those legs, but there's something funny about little tiny legs to me that was missing when I had those longer legs. So, shapes and choices had to be made to make it a little bit more effective in that manner. I'm also a person who loves design choices that are irregular. So, like, the equivalent of the can here is taller on this side than it is on this side. And this oval that would be the opening is flat on one edge here. And is it technically correct? No, it's probably not. But to me, those are the things that I actually think are, like, my favorite part of pieces, is when I start to mess around with, like, the expectation of perspective or expectation of shape. And so, like, making a mouse where he has these big arms and these little tiny legs, that's the fun part. A lot of it goes down to, like, in character design or shape design, like, what shape implies power, what shape implies safety, what shape implies, so, like, as an example, let me use a little scrap of paper here. I only got a few minutes left, so we'll finish that up in a second. But if I take, here's an example. If I take a shape that is like this, relatively blocked, right? We're used to saying, okay, here's a person. But if I start to make that a wider shape here, and when I put those feet on there, there's going to be a different persona that goes with that. That could be either someone who's really bulky, so they have, like, broad shoulders, and so they're, like, big and strong, and they have these little spindly legs, and the further those legs are apart, the more spindly they are. If I come in and I make that really tall, and I put those legs on, it's going to give a different vibe, right? So what I tend to do is I look at those shapes, and I start to say, okay, can I get something that implies, like, let's say someone who's really steady on their feet. I don't want to go in here and say, I want to have someone that's top heavy. If I start to go and draw someone that has these little spindly legs, that bulk that's at the top has a tendency to want to tip over. So if I want someone who's going to be sort of structurally sound, I might look at the idea of someone that has maybe a pear shape for that body, right? In the mouse that I'm choosing there, the reason why it's bulkier on the top is it automatically, the goal there of why I chose that shape is I'm already putting the bulk out over those legs. So if my legs are here, the center of mass is out in front of those legs. So automatically that's going to force that character to need to run to keep up with its bulk, right? With the center of mass. And so by just having that shape lean forward, I mean, I could do something where I have that same mouse and he's, like, leaning back and he's still running here. And that can work, but that's almost like they're playing catch up, and their legs are going faster than their body, right? In this case, the body is actually taking the weight and forcing the character to run. So just by adding those little things in there, like shape design, things like that, can make a difference in your character. The other thing that, excuse me, this thing is strong. This marker is strong. It hits you all of a sudden. The other thing that comes into play is just like, can I look at the general sort of shapes that are in it, and can I be consistent with it? So like if I'm going to do something right now, I have, you'll notice my mouse is this shape, but you'll notice I actually have similar sort of, what do I want to call these, like, I don't know what shape those are. The ears are essentially the exact same shape. And so there's a connection that's being made. They feel like they're sort of unified and in the same family. There's choices there that inherently I'm making that I'm not doing a lot of thinking about, but I've done this enough times that I start to make those decisions in a way that I've sort of done it before and I know it works. Let's put it that way. So that's where some of that shape stuff comes from. Let's put it that way. Okay, I only got a few minutes, so I want to hit one last little thing here. One, I was going to put in mouths on them. So I'm going to draw a little tiny mouse here. Actually, I want a different marker. Or not marker, but do I have it here? It should be here somewhere. Gotta put it here. I want to get this guy in here like this. And I want to give him 2 little teeth because I can. I gotta wait for that to dry though. And then I need to write in that word. If for some reason I don't make it, September Studio, thank you. I hope that was really helpful. So I'm gonna write in pie filling. I feel like it should just say like generic pie filling. So it's not like a label. It just says pie filling. What I'm gonna do is see if I can get this to dry just a touch more. Just a touch more. And then, ooh, that wasn't even white. That's not a great shape there. Let's try it. Much better. Put 2 little teeth there. Okay, now let's put in that pie filling and then we wrap for the night. Put in, let's see. I'm gonna make it feel a little bit more like, I did this the other day where it's like, I want it to feel a little bit like it is irregular. It feels more like cut paper, even though I'm doing it with a marker. I do it on time, 3 minutes. I might write cherry pie filling. Should it say cherry pie filling with a G or just filling? I'll do a G. We'll get that there, and then maybe I'll do a little detail work around this. Feeling. We'll do the same thing down here. Where are we timing? 11:59. This is going to end before I can probably get this last one done. But anyways, I had a wonderful night, everybody. I'm going to stop this just before I get that done. It's going to end in 1 second. You all have a lovely evening. I will see you next week with another Gab and Doodle. Good night.